meeting at 9:12 a.m. and thank you for your attendance, councillors. Do we have anyone confirmation of the minutes of the 8th of September 2021? Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, I'll move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 8th of September 2021 be confirmed.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Do we have any other minutes? No. Okay, do we have any other business before we move on to the motion?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to raise some business arising. Mr Mayor, I refer to the minutes of the meeting of 1st of September 2021, which were confirmed at the meeting of 8th of September 2021, and the approved resolution SM-09.202.07, whereby Council was to receive the Chief Executive Officer's quarterly report under the performance agreement. Could the CEO please provide me with a copy of that report pursuant to Section 170A of the Local Government Act?
Okay, so take that on notice. Any other business? Then we'll move on to the agenda. Item 8.1, recommendation to purchase 13 single cab 4x4 Utes. Councillor McMullen.
Councillor, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that Council repeal Resolution 0M-05.2021.34 and replace with that Council not award the tender.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? I'd just like to ask a question. In this situation, is it best to just withdraw it? Is that the situation you're dealing with?
I think so, Mr Mayor. I believe we'll just have to go to tender. We'll reassess too, are these the right use for the job again?
Yeah.
And then, because it's been a period of time.
Yeah.
And with the restructure happening.
And that gives everyone else the opportunity.
Yeah.
Councillor McMullen?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I just made a comment before. I think everyone's going to have trouble, all suppliers will have trouble supplying at the moment from what I'm hearing.
Oh, yeah, we're getting similar feedback.
Yeah.
And considering this supplier is part of one of the biggest dealers in Australia, it's surprising that they can't get build dates. But obviously there's a lot of, I suppose, outside influences, particularly COVID in some of the Asians where the manufacturing is carried out.
Yeah, especially also components, which can really affect build as well. So
Toyota reported that they've had to close 27 of their 29 production lines in Japan for 2 to 3 days a week.
Yeah. So, okay, any other questions? So we had a mover and a seconder. Does anyone wish to speak? No opposition. Then we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item 10.1, Council Christmas and New Year Closure 2021. I would like to move that Council approve the annual Christmas and New Year closure for the general workforce from the close of business Thursday 23rd of December 2021 and reopening on the Tuesday the 4th of January 2022. Point 2, approve the closure of the Ulbar Administration Office on the gazetted public holiday only. All other business days will operate as usual. 3, approve the annual Christmas and New Year closures of council libraries in Jackson, Wallumbilla and Mungallala from close of business Thursday 23rd of December 2021 and reopening Monday the 10th of January 2022. 4, approve the annual Christmas and New Year close down for the field-based operational teams of Roma, Bungle, Bendemeer, Warroo and Baringa, and the Project Management Office and Roma Quarry, excluding those services identified below as essential services requiring skeleton crews. From Monday the 20th of December 2021 to Tuesday the 4th of January 2022. And then point 5 I'm going to change. Approve that Roma, so I'll actually put in there that approve the Roma waste facility be closed on Christmas Day, 25th of December, and that 2 15-metre skip bins be provided outside the facility for public use for those days of the closure. So that means that we will be actually opening on New Year's Day, which I do believe that we can get someone to work if we give them notice, and that'll be more economical and a better service. So 6, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to communicate the annual Christmas and New Year closures to council employees, customers, residents and the general public.
Mayor, would you need to change 5? 15-metre skip bins provided outside the facility for public use for that day, because it's not those days, there's only one day.
Right,
you're
yeah, good
proposing.
point. Yep. So that'd go out on New Year's Eve then.
Yeah,
Yep.
not for the day of closure, that's fine, thanks, Kev. I'll second that, Mr Mayor, if that's...
Okay, do we have a
I have a question.
question? Please go ahead, Councillor Hancock.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Just wondering, how did it work last year, Director Rob? How did what was the feedback last year? We closed on Christmas Day, New Year's Day and provided the skip bins, and I was just wondering how that worked. Were they overflowing? Did it work?
No, we've probably been... initially, a few years ago, we were closing Christmas Day and Boxing Day and New Year's Day, and then we were just finding that it was just the waste there, the skip bins weren't holding up, weren't keeping up to it there, so probably the last 2 years there we've gone back just to having closure for 2 days, but we were closing for 2 and 4 days there, 3 and 4 days there in previous years, but it was just found it was the bins, because of Boxing Day, Christmas, everyone was using them there, so it was actually probably more economical to open than trying to clean up outside the gate. So last year was those 2 days. Certainly better than the previous years there, but obviously by going to the 1 day now, it'll just means that only relying on the skip bins for that 1 day now.
Did it overflow last year?
I didn't get the complaints last year. Certainly the year before, I do remember getting the phone calls at home, and the year before that. I don't recall getting the phone calls last year on it. So, but yeah, certainly it is a problem then when you do close for too many days, because they do overflow. Get a windy day like you had yesterday and today here, it blows all across the countryside. So in actual fact, the cleaning up cost was probably greater than what it was to actually to open on that day. But look, I don't recall the phone calls last year, but certainly the 2 previous years I was getting calls on Christmas and Boxing Day. So
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I've got a question.
Please go
And
ahead.
it's to you, Chair. I don't know whether I'm for or against this yet. Why the change?
I've seen council not have the level of service that we need. I also believe it's kinder on our staff not to have to go even pick up a small amount of rubbish, and the amount of rubbish that generated, for instance, on New Year's Day, where people just say, okay, I'll go and get some jobs done. Just opening the gates is a better service for the people of the Maranoa, and as the director said, sometimes it can even be cheaper to do that. So I do think Christmas Day is a different kettle of fish, but I do believe for New Year's Day, it'll be better for our staff and the public if we are business as usual on New Year's Day. Okay. Right, okay, let's get into the debate. I'll speak to this. I do believe,
One other question.
please go ahead.
Through the Chair to Director Rob. In terms of having the facility open on January the 1st, does that is that our staff would have to be there, or that would just be the contractors that we already contract to man the weighbridge?
If council's going to open that day, I'd just go with the contractor, just on the weighbridge. Just doesn't mean we won't be pushing up, obviously, that day. It's just obviously manning the weighbridge and directing customers around them.
So you'll only need one staff, sorry. So you'll only need one man? One
Yeah,
staff?
it's a contract staff
Contractor.
person that
Okay.
they provide the staff.
On the weekend.
And again, through the chair, the engagement of that particular contractor, is that on do we have a contract for that?
Yeah, we do. I haven't got it in front of me, councillors there, but actually, pretty sure actually the way it actually reads, it's only the Christmas Day that it's closed anyway. Anything else has actually been a bonus for them anyway. So
And so therefore there'll be no additional cost.
no, it shouldn't be. No, and it's a flat rate anyway. It's a flat rate, councillors. I'm mindful we're an open thing, but it's talking about their rates. But it's a flat rate all year round. So, but I haven't got the contract in front of me. But I can say that it is a flat rate, and I'm pretty confident it's only actually the Christmas Day that's built into the contract that's automatically closure with them. So.
Just on that, my understanding, it would be an extra day, but it's at a flat rate. Just so you know, when you said no additional cost, there may be additional cost, but there's additional cost for the bins as well. So the bins are a major additional cost. So
To follow up then through the chair, Director Rob, is that doesn't sound right then if it's a flat rate in the contract and we've been just closing on New Year's Day in other years, that's an additional day. Why is it going to cost?
No. So in the contract, we've got a compulsory shutdown day that they are not required, which is the Christmas Day. But obviously over the last 10, 15 years, there's been days where we've closed Christmas Day, Boxing Day, New Year's Day. There was a fourth day, I think, as well we had in there. So, but under their contract, if we require them to work, it's not outside their contract. They're only closed for the one day, and that's just they only charge us for the days they work. So whether it's a public holiday or a Saturday or a Wednesday, it's a flat rate.
So no penalty rates for that day?
Mr Mayor, I think last year or the year before we discussed this, and they're a flat hourly rate where the flat rate's coming in.
They may have to pay penalty rates.
No. Oh, well, I don't know.
Well, they
Council pay a flat
Yeah.
rate, flat hourly rate, no matter what day of the year it is.
okay, so I'll speak to this motion. I certainly do believe it's coming around again for a Christmas closure, and that we look forward to our staff having some time off. To our customers, the people of the Maranoa, I'd also like to see that hopefully we're fine-tuning this to give as best service we can in those with those restraints of giving people time off. I would like to hear if anybody of the public would like it fine-tuned more so we can look at it for future years, and we have been doing that. And I do believe if this motion is passed that, having New Year's Day is a day that people can go and do things if they've got projects and plans and cleaning up and all the rest of it. I do believe for the Roma waste facility will be a bonus, and I'll look forward to, if this motion is supported, that we can offer a high level of service for the people of the Maranoa. Would anyone wish to speak against the motion? Does anyone else wish to speak? Well, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item 12.1, tender 22008.
What about 11.1?
54.
54, thank you. Uh, 11.1, monthly financial report as at the 31st of 31st of August 2021. Councillor Taylor.
I'd like to move that the monthly financial report for the period ending the 31st of August 2021 be received and noted.
We have a seconder. Councillor Hancock. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item 12.1, tender 22-008, sewer relining Roma and Mitchell, 2021-2022. Do we have a mover? Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that council select Relining Solutions Proprietary Limited as a preferred tenderer for tender 22-008, noting that submitted price of $631,821.35 exclusive of GST, including GST of $63,182.14 for the total value of $695,003.49 for the completion of the sewer relining at Roma and Mitchell. 2, council authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to enter into final negotiations with Relining Solutions Proprietary Limited and form a contract to carry out the works if the final terms are acceptable.
We have a seconder, Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Page 76. 12.2, Mitchell CBD Disability Access Improvements. I've got a question. Talking about next to, behind the, or in the side street on the corner of where the news agency is, what position, is this covered in these recommendations where we're going to put them? Or is that a different?
No, Mr. Mayor, so the two locations at the moment would be on Cambridge Street, on the main street. One just outside the chemist. There's a tree there that would we're just finding people with disability parks close to trees just provides them protection for both sides, not just the bollard side. And then the other one's just opposite the, just near the library there. So there is a bus stop just around the corner from the news agency. But yeah, if it was something council wanted to look at, it could be a third dot point to explore something on that street and whether it's possible to fit in there. But the current recommendation is just the two that went out specifically to consultation, and that's.
Yeah, right. Do we have any other questions?
I'm happy to move.
No, I do have questions.
Yeah, please go ahead, Councillor Hancock.
Through you, just double checking. So I'm a little bit confused. Point 2 says approve the installation of the 2 new disability, and then we've got option 1 and option 2. Are we choosing between option 1 and option 2, or are we putting in both those options?
Yes. So through you, Mr. Chair, it is 2 parks. It's just how they've been described as option 1 and option 2 when we went to the consultation process, just in case people were heavily in favour of one over another. They've come back and said that both, that they've got no issues with both. So, yeah, I can see where the issue could be there, but option 1 is just describing one location and option 2 is just describing another location. So it just afforded us the ability to go with 1, 2 or 1 and 2. The recommendation is for 1 and 2.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a suggestion? In the, Councillor Burke wants to move it, fair enough, but in the, can it say after consultate at options 1 and 2, like options at, or?
I suppose it does say A option 1 at blah 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 and B option 2. So it's that
Yeah, long
and.
as
That,
they,
And
yeah.
ties it in.
So, Councillor Burkett, do you wish to move it?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
I'd like to move that Council 1 receive and note the register of submissions received in relation to the community consultation on disability access improvement for Mitchell. 2, approve the installation of 2 disability accessible car park as identified in the community consultation package. A, option 1, location adjacent to 31 Cambridge Street, Mitchell, and B, option 2, location adjacent to 86 Cambridge Street, Mitchell.
Would the mover, I'm happy to second it, would the mover be happy to have that extra dot point on the basis that I did have a person with a disability that wanted a park around near the news agency there, and like that's the person that live it, that if we could put that into investigate, to have a park there, because
Investigation, yeah, I'm happy with that.
because they were the ones that had the vehicle with the wheelchair on top, and they said that's the perfect place to have.
It's just, it can get a bit messy with the two, but like bus stop there, that's the only thing.
Yeah, well, that'd have to be solved. All you're doing, if you decide to do that, is we're looking at investigating.
Well, yeah, it'd be worth investigating because the bus stop's actually been brought back, but, so there's actually 2 bus stops there now, so, yeah, investigation will nut that out as well.
Just,
Deputy Director will definitely,
Corner of Cambridge and Alice, I suppose.
Yeah, along Alice Street, close to the intersection with Cambridge and Alice.
Okay. Yellow, you missed yellow.
Did I?
Probably just could even add, just so it's really clear, along the western side of Alice Street. That just ties it to the.
my gut feeling is that having enough space there in a quiet side street to do all your electrical motoring and doing all that, people like that, as well as these options that we're looking at, which will be good.
I have another question.
Yeah, Councillor Hancock.
This resolution is just to put in the disability car parks. It's actually not to put in the ramps, because I think.
We've done the ramps.
Mr. Mayor, so there's a current resolution where council's approved the 3 additional ramps. So it was actually quite nice to receive the feedback as well of additional ramps, which has actually already been approved to be installed. So
Is that at the same site as these car parks?
so when we approve the disability car park, the ramp is part of installation of the disability car park, if that makes sense. So the ramp from the park up onto the curb.
To the footpath?
So
Yep.
if council was to approve 2 car parks today,
Yep.
that's 2 car parks which include ramps from
Access from there.
Correct.
Yeah. Because it's, the worst thing is you, in disability car park and you get there but you can't get up onto the footpath.
yeah,
So I
no,
just
so
wanted to make sure.
I see sort of the signs, the lines, the curb ramp. It's all part of the one package, if that makes sense.
Yep,
But
thank
in
you.
addition to that, there was some feedback in the consultation that talked about some additional.
Yes, I do remember that.
Which we'd identified, and the team's probably a week or 2 away from installing them new accesses there to widen them up near the Berkeley Lodge, etc. So, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, and just on a question, I noticed in there we had feedback about the toilets, even though they're relatively modern. Is there, and obviously they're probably aging and that, is there any action going to be on those toilets to make them more disability friendly?
Mr. Mayor, we did spot that comment, and we have raised a customer request with the facilities team, and that could eventually maybe come back as a budget consideration or a capital upgrade request there. But yeah, so there's an action. It's not the consultation hasn't come in, and we've only looked at the disability parks. There has been a subsequent CR raised. I think I did put that somewhere in the report there that
I see it in there.
we have sort of passed on that to facilities to investigate whether there's some improvements that can be done there. So.
Or there could be, I noticed even just using those toilets across the road, there's been some maintenance done, but it might not suit people with a disability as much. So Yeah, Councillor McMillan, did you?
I was going to ask another, I'll leave it, I'll put something in about those toilets later, I won't, it's not
Righto.
probably the right time to raise
Okay,
it now.
so-
I'll do it.
I'll just read that.
Yeah.
I did miss two new disability accessible car parks. 3, investigate installation of disability accessible car park along the western side of Alice Street, close to the intersection of Cambridge Street, Mitchell.
And that one, just what thank you for the mover. What I'm talking about is a quite big car park where people can load their wheelchair off next to it, and they do need a bit of space to do that, is what it was explained to me by the person that was using it. Okay, does the move wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to thank the Deputy Director and his team. With an ageing community, there's been a lot of cry out for this, and along with the other pathways getting repaired in the main street, I think it's great for the community, and I think they'll be really pleased.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? I certainly do. I do believe that when you're talking to people that have these disability needs for transport, we do have some challenges that we need to sort out. This will go a small way towards doing that, but I think the more we can do with the advent of the little scooters and all of the four-wheels buggies and so forth, that we really need to be friendly, and you don't realise until you're in that situation. So I certainly support this and any other initiatives council can do. Does anyone else wish to speak? Then does the mover wish to sum up? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item 12.3, heavy vehicle parking improvements, Bowen Street, Roma. Councillor Hancock,
I have a conflict of interest, Mr Mayor.
please go ahead.
I'd like to declare a conflict of interest on item 12.3. The description is heavy vehicle parking improvements, Bowen Street, Roma. Declaring councillor is myself. Person with interest is GL and JM Hancock, my husband and myself, Nicholas Hancock and Stephanie Griffiths, son and partner, Peter and Karen Hancock, brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Particulars of the interest is all parties above whom I have a close association with own and operate heavy vehicles. Type of conflict, declarable conflict of interest, and the action I will take while I leave the room while the matter is being discussed and voted on.
Okay, do we have any other conflicts? Righto. Item 12.3, heavy vehicle parking improvements, Bowen Street, Roma. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council receive and note the report by way of information detailing the heavy vehicle parking improvements undertaken around Roma.
We have a seconder. Councillor Edwards, any opposition?
I have a question, if
Please
I may.
go ahead.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Director Cam, the pictures that we've got over here, where on Northern Road, Quentin Street and Bowen Street, so are they already there, or these are what you're proposing?
Through you, Mr Mayor, so Northern Road and Quinton Street are, so stage 1 and 2 are installed.
So they have the signs up?
Correct, yep, it's just stage 3, just formalising that. There was a presentation the other day just on CBD generally that was just about the councillors interested in seeing the changes. This report's just following through on this is how we're doing it. So this particular area has been scrutinised stage 3 a lot because it does say no heavy vehicles at the moment, but they can fit there. It's just they park there, even though the signs say they can't. It's just making sure that we can formalise the area that they actually should be parking in. So
they could go to McDonald's and stuff like that.
Yeah.
that was feedback from AgForce. There's really no spots there. We scrutinised over whether to keep it open for caravan or heavies. We just thought that there is a lot of opportunities for caravans on side streets, etc. So it says heavy vehicles, which is a vehicle with a GVM of 4.5 tonne or more. So that will be for your trucks, because there's really nowhere else along that stretch that they can pull up. So we thought it warranted giving them at least 2 parks that they can. As I said, they're parking there now. It's just trying to formalise it a bit more and make it actually legal, and that. So
So this resolution will make that happen.
correct, yeah. It's
Thank you.
Councillor McMullen.
I'm just going to ask the question of Deputy Director Cam. The one outside McDonald's, I know the map's probably a lot further away from their driveway from coming out of Cookers than it shows on the map, if you know what I mean. There was an issue there many years ago with trucks parking there when the vehicles were coming out of Cookers, and blind spots there. That's why I don't know, it might have been Roma Town, I can't remember, but it probably was Roma Town days when they decided no parking there at all, I don't.
yeah. Like we've checked the standards. Main Road's obviously heavily involved in this as well, because it's adjacent to theirs. We've got confirmation that they're comfortable with it. Like, will it feel a little bit blind? It might do, but there is a lot of shoulder there before the actual traffic lane. It's probably that manoeuvre turning right out of Cookers, and that.
So my concern would be now with that, they've made that a road train access there into Cookers, the way they've, not that they probably get many, but you do see them there with that way they've set the footpath up.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It was one. It was one thing that we've tried to tick a box. Also had a customer request in relation to the gas bottles being dropped off with the B double. They could use this area now as an area to unload them gas bottles and that. So because you can't fit the road trains in behind Cookers. So.
No, they pull in off the road now, and where they got rid of all the garden beds, and they can pull in there the half out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Councillor Burkett.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, Deputy Director Cam, the same one at McDonald's we're just talking about, it doesn't go right up. Is that because there's that driveway, that blocked off driveway? Is that the reason?
Not so much, Councillor Burkett. It's more the visibility coming out of Hawthorn Street. So that driveway, you probably notice now, it's not approved. Main Roads have taken action to sort that out. The garden beds continues through there now. So whilst the concrete's still there, it's actually you can't get in there. It used to be a bollarded driveway, but Main Roads have it was never to be intended to come off there. So yeah. So to answer your question, it's actually the sign's got to go about a metre inside that concrete drive, like the concrete area there. So, but it's visibility that's driving that side. So yeah.
Councillor McMullen.
Mayor, another quick question for Deputy Director Cam. Is there any law to say Type 2 can't, now we're allowed the stock trucks to go through there, is there anything to say they can't pull up in the streets?
Type 2 road trains?
Yeah. Not that I've seen any do it in saying that. But
Yeah, I don't think so, Councillor McMullen. There's definitely a law to say that heavy vehicles can't stop for more than an hour in built-up areas, which this would be. It would be just whether we could physically fit. I'm not sure. You'd need a car park. Heavy vehicle Type 2 is 53 metres, so you might need a car park in the order of 65, 70 metres to get them in and out. So,
like the one in opposite McDonald's there, if you're coming from the east, I don't know if you'd fit there, but it's easy to get into it if that's. Yeah.
correct, yeah. So the feedback from AgForce was even just the body trucks, like their members just. It's difficult for a body truck just to pull up somewhere.
A lot of the times the body truck pulls up there, where you've got number 86 there, which is in Arthur Street, just around there, and then they go to Woolies and,
Yep.
you know, where the bus stop is.
Oh yeah, near the bus stop there.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's just body trucks though, usually.
Yep.
But just, Director Cameron, the more parks we get around that area, because a lot of those trucks, if you want to do business in town, there's nowhere for you to park.
Yeah.
You know, at all.
That's
you know, really, you know, you just got to keep going through Roma because there's nothing or nowhere to park, which is a bit hard to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To create those parks.
Yeah, it's very sad. I think
It is.
heavy vehicles are a second-class citizen when it comes to parking.
So they just got to keep going if they, you know, and find a town where they can stop and shop. And I'm sure of a lot of them would want to shop.
So this is positive.
Yeah,
But anyway, let's get into the debate now. Does the mover wish to speak to this?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor, sorry.
Does anyone else wish to speak? I certainly do. I think any way that we can give truck drivers, whatever sort of truck or heavy vehicle they're driving, an opportunity to pull up and get a coffee and also change where they go and what they do, because it's a break out of the vehicle. If we don't support initiatives like this, we're in a situation that we're just only letting them go to truck stops, which is fine, but I think they go there enough. So this is giving them other options, and I'll certainly be supporting this motion. Does anyone else wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0.
George, do you want to, your place is to the door?
No, Cameron's gone.
Okay, item 12.4, RSL Veterans Affairs Funding, Roma. Councillor O'Neill.
I move that Council 1 approve the delivery and purchase of required infrastructure for option 1, including 2 flagpoles, solar-powered lighting, upgrading of the Roma Cenotaph garden beds, and a left-hand accessible car park space in Bungle Street, Roma Cenotaph. Left-hand accessible. Should that be a disabled park?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor O'Neill, that's just how it's described, but
So
that's essentially a disability park.
Disability park, okay, all right, I'll keep going. 2, undertake works for the Roma RSL branch, including the additional disabled car park space, access ramp, signage, bollard and line marking under a private works arrangement. And I've got a third point, which is a report be presented at an upcoming ordinary meeting of council with the costings of purchasing and installing permanent speakers at the Roma Cenotaph.
Sorry, Councillor O'Neill, do you have any objection if that was a separate motion, because it's not actually related to the acquittal of the grant for the RSL?
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to. The reason I added in there because option 2 included speakers, so it is part of the report. It's just that we're going with option 1.
Who's the funding for the third one?
I don't know. I just want to know what the costings are. I'm happy to speak to that point when we get to it.
Okay.
But so no, I'll leave it as is if that's all right.
You are CEO from a grant point of view, or what are you?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to clarify whether it was part of that grant,
No.
or whether
no,
it's potentially something that council would fund.
In addition, yeah.
In addition, yeah, which it just makes it difficult if it's under, it will always be recorded under that grant heading.
So would you be happy just to do a separate motion?
If that makes it cleaner.
Righto. Okay, so,
Because this is, we're just facilitating this item as opposed to being
Yeah,
a
sure.
council project, yeah.
All right, well, I foreshadowed what another one would be, but I'll move 1 and 2
Righto.
as I've read it.
we have a seconder. Councillor Ladbrook, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
Can I just ask a question?
Please go ahead.
Just in here where it says the two-way powered speaker stands a microphone to be purchased by the RSL, so you don't want them to purchase it?
That was an option that was put to them, and
So they're not going to do that?
no, they've
Oh,
gone with
okay.
option
$10,000
Oh, right.
out of a grant.
Okay, so does the mover wish to speak to it?
Just to say, Mr Mayor, that these improvements will continue what has been significant work over a number of years to happen at the Roma Cenotaph. Congratulations to the RSL for seeking out the grant, and whatever way council can help make these improvements a reality, I think we need to get behind and support this particular organisation in our town.
Okay, do we have anyone else wish to speak to it? Certainly do believe anyway we can, as has been said, work with the RSL and the volunteers that make this happen. It's very good partnership, and the more we can work together, the better for the people of Roma, and remembering the sacrifice and history that has been happened by other people, and we always need to remember that. So does the mover, anyone else wish to speak? The mover doesn't wish to sum up. We're going to vote. All those in favour? 9-0.
And Mayor, as I foreshadowed just a few moments ago, I'd like to move that a report be presented at an upcoming ordinary meeting of council with the costings of purchasing and installing permanent speakers at the Roma Cenotaph.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor McMullen. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks very much, Mayor. I obviously included it in the motion that has just been previously voted on, because it was an option to the RSL to have permanent speakers funded out of that particular grant. I don't, for 1 minute, question their decision to use the money for the installation of an all abilities access car park. I think that is appropriate, but for a number of years now, we have been approached as a council to fund temporary speakers to ensure that the people that attend, particularly Anzac Day, but other ceremonies that happen at the Cenotaph, that they are able to hear the proceedings. I think that's vitally important. I've been to a number of Anzac Day ceremonies there now where we have funded that and had the temporary speakers in place. It does make it a far better ceremony, and therefore, given that we have funded it in the past and more than likely will continue to be requested upon council to look at those temporary speakers, I think it's now upon us to at least find out what the costings would be to install permanent speakers in this particular asset of our community.
Would the mover be happy to include in that motion that we consult with the contractor that does the production, because, you know, we're probably looking up to 1,000 people, you know, right into the next street that need to hear especially the Anzac Day, because on speaking to that contractor that provides the produced, they have contacts in that sound area, because, you know, you're dealing with a large crowd of people, to have consultation with them.
So I'm happy to include in there that council consult with relevant stakeholders and technology contractors. If we just go with one, which will be fine, there might be others that we need to. So if we can keep it wide, the community, that council can consult.
It's your envisage that person doing it every year would be asked about it and say, what would you think for speakers?
Well, that would make sense. Yep.
I just have a question, Mr Mayor. Do the RSL actually want permanent speakers?
Yeah, no, I think in part of the park upgrades that were going to happen.
Because I just thought, you know, they might have decided not to because of a certain reason.
No, I've never heard anyone from the RSL say they didn't want it.
Okay.
And remember, it can be in a garden bed or in a garden, these speakers. It's more that I don't think they've got the funding to do it as part of a major cenotaph upgrade, which needs to still happen, you know, for the other conflicts. Okay, any other questions? Is the seconder happy with that change?
Definitely.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Then we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Page 112, 12.5, tender 22006, supply and delivery of concrete powder for road stabilisation projects. Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that Council 1 select Wagner Cement Proprietary Limited as a successful tenderer for tender 22006, noting the price of $492,000, $535.56, including GST. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to enter into final negotiations with Wagner Cement Proprietary Limited through a purchase order. 3, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to approve expenditure above the requested amount but within the allocated approval budget.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hancock, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item 13.1, Injune Fire and Rescue SES Station Driveway Maintenance. Do we have a mover? Councillor Guthrie.
I'd like to move that Council 1 approve the request for the minor works to be completed at the Injune Fire and Rescue SES Station, and 2, confirm the work is to be undertaken at the completion of the Injune Curb and Channelling Project.
We have a seconder, Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Do we have a question?
Yep.
Please
Through
go
you,
ahead.
Mr Mayor, Mr Jam. Just a couple of questions. One of them is, with the budget for it, is this something that we would normally fund out of that budget? Like what are some other stuff that we fund out of that budget? Like, are we leaving enough budget to fund what we normally fund?
Correct, we are. We receive funding from state government every year to support the SES groups around the region with various projects.
Yep.
Maintaining facilities, training equipment, stationery, the likes. So.
We don't, well, it's a recurrent funding, we receive it every year, we don't actually spend it all every year, and we do actually roll a little bit over and over, so we, to fund these sort of out of the ordinary ones as well, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Which is what we did down in Surat with the boat shed and the relocation there. We actually had rolled sufficient funds over multiple years to fund that one, so.
Yep, good, thank you.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Please go ahead.
I obviously was involved in helping with this, and I've just spotted something. I was just going to see whether we could just do a minor tweak from a programming point of view. Would the mover and seconder be happy, instead of at the completion, just we amend that to be in conjunction with, just in case there's a reason that while we're up there, like that's just making sure that I can't start it until we do the curb. So I just in conjunction with, if that's okay.
Mover and seconder happy with that? Yep. Righto. Any opposition? Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
No, I just think when you actually see the site and you realise there's a lot of dirt at the front, it just makes a lot of sense to actually upgrade it as it's been specified there. I think it's particularly a positive step forward.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Yeah, certainly. I think any space where is usable. So to have that, it's obviously driven by the people on the ground wanting these improvements. So I think it's very good if council can support it. Does anyone else wish to speak? Does the mayor wish to sum up? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item 13.2, request to purchase portion of council land on Lot 2 on RP 64008. I'd like to move that council decline the offer to... well, before I do that, I might just ask a question. Did we ever ask whether they not actually end up with the land, because obviously it's got strategic reasons, but can they ever have casual use of it, or like they said he's just going to put his fence up I thought.
Yeah.
There's no need for anything else, or what, did we talk to him after that, or?
Yes, yes, Mr Mayor, there is some information in there and also a copy of the documentation that was sent to the applicant. We advised the applicant that council had declined the offer to purchase, but we still would look at leasing. He then responded and said, look, you know, he was now looking to fence the land and ask questions about any assistance council could provide in the fencing. We did have a conversation with the affected groups, being the Lapidary, the Family History and Performing Arts, and the responses from those groups as well are in there. To more or less summarise their responses, they were very much along the lines of they couldn't give a definite answer one way or another without knowing the area. And Performing Arts said if they were moving, then they would want to set up some shipping containers for storage at the Performing Arts Centre in Maranoa, the Arts Centre.
Righto, so there's no interest, so basically, as in the report there, it's more just gonna put the fence up where the boundary is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move that council decline the offer to lease a portion of council freehold land described as Lot 2 on RP 64008. To advise the applicant and the Roma District Family History Society Incorporated, Roma District Lapidary and Mineral Society Incorporated, and Roma Performing Arts Society of council's decision. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item 13.3, request for reduction of planning application fees. I've got a question. It's unusual that we're getting asked to reduce the fees. Is it part of something that's happening out of the ordinary with this, why they're asking?
Mr Mayor, as I understand, this is one of, it's a part of a very large project, not just occurring in the Maranoa, where Telstra is developing a number of mobile base stations, and what they've said is that they're approaching all local government areas where they're building these, requesting a reduction in fees just to support the project. So I believe they have another one coming up shortly in the Maranoa, and they'll be requesting the same thing in that case as well.
Well, I'd like to move that council approve the requests for a reduction in the development application fees payable for material change of use, telecom facilities, code accessible. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Well, we'll start with, I'll speak to this. I know that we have been asked by multiple communities that would be looking for small cells or mobile communication towers that it could be quite reasonable that council could be funding themselves. So whilst we understand there's some large organisations involved with this, in fact, I do remember, and I think the councillors that were here will remember that, you know, the same areas were actually asking for that as, and now if it can start to happen and our contribution is reducing our fees, I believe that's a win-win for council in being able to do that. So I think any more communications we can get in the region, and I do think we need to partner, whether it's the federal government giving the grants, Telstra, Downer, I think we should be focused on the results rather than should we do this. Councillor Taylor.
I just have a question. If
Please
I
go
may.
ahead.
Manager Danielle, Downer are doing the job for Telstra, is that how I understand it? So they would have tendered for the job?
I'm not entirely sure, I would assume so. I think they're representing Telstra for the entire project.
So you would assume they have tendered for the job. So I wonder if they decided, well, yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor O'Neill.
I'll be speaking against this on the basis that this is a multinational company that is in a financial position to be able to fund the entire amount. In fact, on page 145, Council will note that they have already paid 100% of the application fee, and they, on the basis that a request goes to Council to refund. So they have in fact paid the full amount. If we reduce this, if it is approved today to approve the request to reduce the development application fee, it goes against our Council's community grants and non-financial assistance policy. It will have to be deducted somewhere from Council. I suspect that that will be deducted from an area where we do approve the Council's community grants and non-financial assistance requests. So a community group in our region will now not be able to access this because we are providing, if it's supported today, a multinational with a reduction. And I just think that is wrong. This project, on my reading of this report, is going ahead. The community will have telecommunications down there, and therefore I cannot support this reduction today because it's taking away from our community and our community groups.
So Councillor O'Neill, you were speaking against.
I said that.
Yeah. I just didn't know you had a question.
Mr Mayor, just, if I can ask a quick question to Councillor O'Neill. Did you say there's in there somewhere where they've already paid it?
I referenced Councillor McMullen, page 145 down the bottom.
So just clearing the record, you did say that,
thank you. No,
Councillor
I was reading
O'Neill,
it.
but you didn't say the whole story.
Yes, I did. I read that whole
But
thing.
what was the whole thing? The whole thing that
To
I
avoid delaying the assessment process until a determination of the application fees is made, Council has accepted payment of 100% of the application fee.
Exactly. So they were paying it on the basis that they knew it was coming to council.
That's what I said.
And it wasn't, well, the way that it sounded like, oh, they'd already paid it.
They have already
Yeah,
paid it.
but they'd already paid it to keep the project going.
I said that.
And that's a different kettle of fish. And sometimes people do pay, they pay rates to actually make sure that they don't get any further behind in interest. Okay. So does anyone wish to speak for the motion?
No, I just have a question.
Please go ahead, Councillor Hancock.
Further on from Councillor Taylor's question is, who is the reduction going to? Down a contractor company that's has already put in a tender to do the job, or to actual Telstra? Like, I want to know who's getting the reduction, who will know about the reduction.
It says Downer seeks council's consideration.
So we could, if we looked at doing it, we're giving it to the contractor, but Telstra might not even know that we're doing that. So I'm just wondering where the benefit of it is. Like, it's not being passed on to the Tealbar community. They're getting the project with or without it.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Downer have paid the application fees, so we'll be refunding the money to them if council approves the request.
Are they a local company?
Worldwide, Downer.
Well, I think they do work out here on a subcontract basis probably within the industries.
And all the plans have got Telstra on them, so, but anyway, we'll keep going with the debate and then we'll get a chance to speak to it. Who else would like to speak for or against the motion?
I'd like to. I totally agree with what the Mayor said there. I just think it's, there's a bigger picture here. It's not necessarily the money, but, I think the bigger picture is letting everyone know what's going on. And, I just think it's a great opportunity for, for the people in these areas to have access to, telecommunications. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Hancock.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. whilst I agree, I think telecommunication is right for everybody, and I'm very supportive of getting telecommunication across the Maranoa. My concern is that the reason of why we're doing it, because the timing of this being brought to the table, if this was part of the initial assessment and being able to partner with Telstra to do the project for the Tilbar community, we would have been at the table and we would have had that, knowledge that Telstra knows that we're wanting to give this deduction to enhance doing this sort of stuff in the Maranoa. My concern is that's actually not going to be the outcome of this. This is going to be giving it to a contractor who may not even feed that back to Telstra, and so therefore it's not going to alter any decisions in the future, and we will have to take this money from our community organisations who actually really need it. Like $1,000 for them is a lot of money. So whilst I absolutely agree with the telecommunications, and if they had to come to us at the beginning, so we could partner from the beginning, but I just think that that's just something that's not sitting well with me, that we're getting it at this point of the project and asking for a reduction in the building fees. Like, something's not adding up for me personally, and so that's why I cannot support this.
Councillor Guthrie?
Mr Mayor, can I just ask a question, please? In the request, is there any justification or any reasoning given for the reduction in the application fees? Was there any commentary given as to why they're seeking the reduction?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's primarily to support the project, they've said, and because it will benefit the Maranoa region, so it will improve mobile phone coverage in our region, particularly in the Tilbar area. But as I just mentioned before, they've got a number of projects on the go, so they'll be requesting the same for each.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak for or against the motion? Then I'll sum up. I believe this is clear that this is an opportunity for councillors to support bringing small cell technology, which is the probably least profitable technology, and giving a fee waiver that has been asked by Telstra's builder or contractor. And the situation is simple, that we may well be having to do this. And I don't agree with that people will lose money, because if in the future they decide Maranoa is not playing ball, then we may not have any fees to be able to reduce, and there is no income that is benefiting. There's no council income that you will get. Now, I've been able to meet with the CEO of Telstra, and everyone is asking for more investment in communications. Everyone. All of the mayors that meet business. And this is an opportunity to say, next time that we meet with decision makers in Telstra, that we actually support your investment in the regions because we give you a reduction in fees. So the Maranoa is open for more telecommunications in the least profitable sector. This is not a massive tower. These are small cells with small population bases that are not the high profit area of Telstra. So the more that we can do to say Maranoa is open for business, and we welcome what Telstra is doing with their builder, their contractor, that's better for the Maranoa, because it could be that council has to fill that void. And that's a far worse situation than a reduction in fees. Okay, well, please.
Mayor, is it too late to move an amendment? I just thought of something.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Could we just add a second, I suggest, a second dot point in to, I don't know how to advise Telstra themselves of this if it goes through.
Yeah,
rather than
I'm in favour of that.
So that if it is the contractor benefiting, that Telstra know about it. Does that make sense?
Well, I'd be happy to write to Telstra. So we could have it as a second point there, Kel. So point 2 would be right to Telstra. And if we can start with, on the beginning of point 2, for the Mayor to write to Telstra to advise Telstra of Council's decision to reduce building fees or whatever it is, planning fees. Advise Telstra of Council's decision to reduce fees
Associated with the teal bar.
associated with
development
small cell mobile phone technology for the Teal Bar community. As a way of supporting Telstra and the community. To provide more services. Authorise the Mayor to write to Telstra, advise Telstra of Council's fees associated with small supporting Telstra and the community to provide more services. Is the seconder happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Mr Mayor, you may not need 2 Telstras in that first line.
righto.
Write to Telstra and advise Telstra, just write to
Yep.
Telstra to provide
advise.
advice,
Second
advice.
Telstra, go.
Advice of.
Advise of council's decision.
Okay, point 2. Authorise the Mayor to write to Telstra to advise of Council's decision to reduce fees associated with small cell mobile phone technology for the Teal Bar community as a way of supporting Telstra and the community to provide more services. Okay, we're going to go to the vote.
So, sorry, Mayor, that's not an amendment. That motion 2 is preempting the decision on motion 1 because it says council will write informing of council's decision to reduce fees. That decision hasn't been made.
Well, if it gets up, that's what we're going to do.
You can't have both of those in the same motion. You need to vote on motion 1 to determine whether that gets up or not, to know whether you can write to Telstra to say that council's reducing the fees.
Can't you say in the event of number 1 going, you couldn't go number 2?
You could do that, Councillor Edwards.
The end of number point 1, do you just add the word and, comma, approve the request of reduction and, so it's part of point 1, and then it flows into, and links 1 and 2 together, and authorise.
Yeah, that's good. I
Yeah,
like that.
don't make it 1 and 2, make it all 1, Cal.
Okay, we understand what we're voting on. We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Sorry, Cal, just move that
Is it,
up to, don't make it 1. Make it all 1 sentence.
I'll read it again so everyone knows. Approve the request for reduction of development application fee payable for material change of use, telecommunication facilities, code accessible, and authorise the Mayor to write to Telstra advise I might put in there Telstra CEO. Telstra CEO. To advise of Council's decision to reduce fees associated with small cell mobile phone technology for the Teal Bar community as a way of supporting Telstra and the community to provide more services.
Can I just ask a quick question? So does that mean these fees are just for Tilbar?
Well, I think we're setting a standard that if we're getting more communications, well, obviously it's one decision, right? But it's.
So if they ask again, it's got to come back?
Yeah, but it's making a statement if we support it.
It
Is the seconder happy with that?
Cal, would you mind just taking the semicolon and the yep, taking that out and the comma after, yep, thanks.
Mr Mayor, because it's been changed to what was originally put up that I spoke against, do you think I could have the right to speak for what's been put up now? Because that's actually changed.
Substantive change.
That's a change to what?
Righto,
Like,
we can
that
do
was,
that.
Councillor McMullen's put that because of something that I said, and I now feel that I need to.
Righto, okay, please.
Because ordinarily we'd vote on the amendment.
That's- yeah.
And whether that got up or not to.
Yeah, it's just changed.
Okay, please go ahead, councillor Hancock.
I'd just like to acknowledge and thank Councillor McMullen for putting this amendment up, because it makes me feel a bit more comfortable that at least Telstra knows what we're doing and how supportive we are. But I just still can't support it because I actually think that this is funding that was given, the job was quoted on at the beginning and the costs were all taken into consideration. And so my point is it is the timing of when they've come to us to ask us for this and who it's going to. I would rather give that $1,000 that we're going to give to the contractor. I'd actually rather give that to the Tilbar community to buy some equipment for their children to be able to use the internet that's going to be provided for them. So that's why I still will not be supportive of this resolution.
Councillor McMullen?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, one of the reasons I put that asked for that extra to be put in, we don't know the details of the contract. This contract, they could be asking on behalf of Telstra and have to provide everything. So by doing this, I thought we would definitely make sure Telstra know about it. So it might be in their contract to supply, pay for the fees, and charge them on, or it might be a bulk contract. We don't know that.
Councillor Burkett?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, just to follow on from Councillor Hancock, is there any way in the future that the next time this does come forward that we can open the door for that negotiations at the start, like Councillor Hancock was just saying, moving forward, like if these other communities that does come up?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we probably rely on these organisations to approach council as they're in the planning phase of their projects. So for this particular one, we weren't aware until quite late in the process when they're lodging the application to us. So they've done all that planning and they know they're going ahead with the project. So
they've got the tender, or whatever.
yes.
Mr Mayor, yeah.
So the big thing is, but there'd be no reason why we couldn't ask them in future to keep us, be informed if they've got others, because you've heard about another one, haven't you?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm pretty confident that we will receive another lodgement for another one in our region fairly shortly, but I think it will also be at that they will have obviously already done that planning too, so we're receiving it at the same point in the project.
Well, maybe we could put something like that in the letter.
Still change the motion.
But I suppose it's too high a level for.
We do tweak it, but the councils can propose amendments.
Yeah, that's one way of doing it. Okay, any other questions?
So I just want to add on to what I said. This EDI Downer, there's nothing to say they're constructing it. They do a lot of project management. They might be doing project management then going out to tender too. I don't know. Well, we don't know.
That's the point, we
that
don't know.
We don't know the whole.
That's right.
We're sort of clasping at what might happen next time, but I mean, they may not be the contractor constructing the job.
Councillor O'Neill?
I just want an opportunity to speak again, given the
Please
change.
go ahead.
So whilst I too am appreciative of what Councillor McMullen has moved to include correspondence going to Telstra, you need to assess the report as is tabled here. It is a contractor that looks to have been awarded whether they're project managing or constructing. We don't know, but they're doing the project one way or another. They've approached us to reduce the fees after the fact of them getting the job to project manage it. I am a huge supporter of telecommunications in our region. I think Tilbar will welcome this with open arms, but I don't support a reduction in the fees because ultimately someone pays, and the someone is going to be the community. That is reduced revenue for council. It would have been far better, as Councillor Hancock has highlighted, if we were to write to Telstra and say, we acknowledge what they have requested via their contractor, but we're going to donate the $1,000 to the Teal community so they can buy telecommunications to use on the network. I just can't support this as it stands, but to suggest anything other than there are councillors that may vote against this that don't support telecommunications in our region would be untrue. I wholeheartedly support it. I just can't support this reduction.
Does anyone wish to speak for or against? I'll sum up. I believe, after being in round tables with the CEO of Telstra, where everyone, I'll say it again, everyone is looking for communication support for their region. To be able to say that we are very supportive and are a development zone where we do reduce our fees when people are putting small cell technology into the region is a very good thing. And you may wish to go and donate $1,000 to Teal, but it's much better if you could give communities in the Maranoa more small cells, which will have a much longer benefit if we can get all of the communities in that space. And it is noticed, even a large organisation like Telstra, it is noticed if people do not work together. And I believe, as councillors, if we want more communications for all of our communities in the Maranoa, we should be strategic and support this request. Okay, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 6-3 if I can call for a division. Item 13.4, Denise Spencer Memorial Swimming Pool Lifeguards.
I just have a question.
Yes, please. Go ahead, councillor.
I just wondered
Did
with
you have
that,
a question, councillor Taylor, or were you going to move it?
I was going to have a question too. I can.
Oh, okay.
I just wonder with that $55, will the contractor be profiting out of that?
Through you, Mr Mayor, council has approved that the pool manager can charge lifeguard fees outside of normal opening hours for when there's a special hire or a special event on. $55 an hour is pretty well in line, comparable to other facilities. There's some details in the report of what's being charged at a couple of other facilities, which is slightly more than the 55. I think that would probably, considering some of the hire was on, say, a Sunday, or the penalty rates, it would definitely be up around that figure, if not slightly more.
Councillor Taylor.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Manager Tenure. So all she's really asking is she's allowed to charge people that are going to privately hire the pool. Does she get to charge them for privately hiring the pool? Is that part of our free part?
No, through you, Mr Mayor, she doesn't. Under the resolution on the 11th of August, the pool manager cannot charge a facility hire fee.
Not even for a special event?
No, not even for special events. So if there's a special event on, someone wants to, a group or an individual wants to use the facility outside of normal pool opening hours, the pool manager cannot charge a facility hire fee, but she can charge the $55 an hour if they require lifeguard services.
She's charging them though?
She charges them. No, she charges the person hiring.
Thank you.
So that if someone private hires the venue, their cost will be this.
Yes.
That'll be it. Okay, do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council approve the manager charge an hourly lifeguard fee of $55, including GST per lifeguard, outside the core business hours of the Denise Spencer swimming pool.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a seconder, Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. We might break for morning tea. Back in half an hour. Righto. Item 13.5, Mungallala Progress Association. Request for council consent to build a garden shed. Councillor Burkett.
Sorry. I'd like to move that council as trustee for the land described as Lot 1 on M54413, granting principal consent for the Mungallala Progress and Sporting Association Incorporated to erect a garden shed on the premises subject to council standard building and planning approvals.
We have a second, Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
Oh yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just think it's the hub of Mungallala at the moment. It's a hive of activity and they've got it looking really good, and I think this is just another little benefit to help them out.
Righto. Anyone else wish to speak? For or against? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, 13.6, consent to survey plan, SP 330791. That Rosa corn, does it have details?
Yeah, I can just about tell you, I reckon, who that is.
Yeah. Anyone that we know?
No. Cornish, wouldn't it? Cornish.
Cornish, sorry, that's
Cornish.
sorry, I'm thinking the wrong end. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Righto, okay.
Pretty much where the report though is just agreeing to, the effect the road's gonna have on council's land, the two parcels of council's land. The other, business owners have to, sign off their own approval.
Right, okay, gotcha. Yep, righto. Do we have a mover, Councillor McMullen?
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council agree to survey plan number SP 330791 and authorise the chief executive officer or delegate to sign the registered owner / lessee's consent to survey plan in respect to council freehold land described as Lot 1 on RP 96250 and Lot 5 on RP 97778 and dedicate the public use land as shown on the plan.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Thank you. Page 171. Item 16.1, local driveways and footpaths. I would like to move that a report be prepared for an upcoming council meeting in conjunction with the new local directors and other regional directors. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ladbrook. Is any opposition to the motion?
I've got no opposition.
Please go ahead.
Can you expand on what you mean, firstly, in your resolution by in conjunction with new local directors and other regional directors? What does that mean? And then, do you mind providing some context as to where this has come from more generally?
Sure. So to do with the local directors, obviously they're going to be on the ground and this would be a local initiative for residents. And I'm talking about the area that is actually public land, which is the area from the boundary out to the edge of the footpath, as it would be considered, or that land onto the roadway, which the council owns. I've had different requests over the time. There's a recent one that if this was in place, one resident, retired resident said, look, if you can just give us fill in a few, put a bit of material there, it stops it being boggy. I think they might have put something else down to stop, but he said if there's any cost involved, don't worry about it because we're on a pension and can't afford it. So we're talking about that micro level We're talking about small amounts of assistance in either minor maintenance work or repairs. So, for instance, potholes. Of course, this is also benefit to people walking because that's a footpath as well. People's driveways are. So it's got a safety angle.
That particular one, have you put a customer request in?
I don't think I have yet because I know it's outside the policy. We don't do that on private driveways. So we'd have to.
It's private. It's not their footpath.
No, like as far as I understand now, the footpath. I'm not talking about inside their boundary, what they do inside, but their footpath. We don't do work on people's footpaths because that is their driveway. So we're talking about the driveway here. So I'm talking about if it needs potholes, I'm talking about having a policy where small amounts of material can go in and council staff will go and make safe and improve it like this person have. And I've got the details that if this comes up and it gets supported, I will be putting the details in for that situation.
And just a follow-up question, I'm still no clear as what it means in conjunction with the local directors or area directors. Do you mean when they're appointed?
Yeah, like after they're appointed.
So no report will come back until
they've had a look at it. How could it work? How could this minor assistance be available for residents? And obviously some of the material might come from the regional directors and it could be put in by the local directors, for instance. So it's not meant to just pile up until they can have a chat about it. Okay, we have a second. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? I certainly do. I do believe the smallest benefits for our residents can help the most. I do understand that we have a lot of lower income residents, which are fantastic residents and do need sometimes some assistance. Small amounts of assistance is actually going to cost less providing it than having multiple CRs and other things in the system. So I believe instead of talking about it, we should fix it. And this is an initiative to have a look at it and see how it would work in the future as we move into operating locally. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item 16.2, Good Neighbours Policy. I'd like to move that a report be prepared for an upcoming council meeting in conjunction with the newly appointed directors.
Can I ask a question, please, Mr.
Yeah, please go ahead.
What exactly would you want in the report, though? When you say
Okay,
good
so
neighbours?
just to know what you may or may not be voting for, what I'm suggesting here is a gap. We've got all our regulatory complaint process, which won't change, whether it's noise or whatever. But I believe that it's very difficult for residents to be able to go and see, for instance, someone they've got an issue with and talk to them face to face, and sometimes it never goes well and they never get on well afterwards, and it, more importantly, doesn't solve the problem a lot of the time.
Between neighbours.
Yeah, it could be neighbours, or it could be, might not be your neighbour, it could be someone that's half a kilometre away that could cause you some issues, and you would like them to, if they could change it, they'd all get on well. So this initiative of the Good Neighbours Policy is actually about someone that's got great people skills in council going and having a friendly chat, nothing to do with compliance or anything like that, about is there a way, for instance, just say someone goes to work at 4 a.m. in the morning and it's waking someone up and they don't want to make a complaint to planning. It could be something that they actually have a talk and say, righto, we'll go and have a chat and see if we can sort it. And it might have been sorted by, for instance, yeah, sure, I can park the truck further away because it's Sunday morning or whatever and do that. And it's a mechanism so residents don't have to have that conversation. It's only if they would like to use it. So it's about finding a process where, and a lot of residents say to me, I don't want to make a big thing and I don't want to make a complaint, but I would like that improved. So this would be a mechanism for that to happen without having to go down a compliance road or whatever. So it's like part of operating locally, this is another step of having the friendly chat and seeing if it can be solved outside the more formal processes.
But you want it to be a policy?
Yeah, a policy, so for instance, through the local directors or working with the regional ones, they have a way of someone rings up and said, I've got this particular issue. They can go, okay, we'll come and have a talk to you, and then we'll confidentially, go and, so no one knows who the person is. They go and have a chat to them and say someone's got a problem getting woken up at 4 a.m. on Sunday morning, but they don't want to make a complaint as far as planning issue or anything like that.
We don't have anything like that now?
Not that I've ever seen work. Councillor Burkett?
I'm curious because there's been a couple of incidents at home that I've been, well, one I've been asked to be a mediator, not just because I'm a councillor or what, but it's like there's a gap between council and the police, like how far, and there's no one, I sort of hear what you're saying, but it's very broad, but there's been instances where you can see looking from the outside looking in that things could have been nipped in the butt if someone did jump in, and I think that the advent of social media and they get on the community discussion escalates things. So yeah, it's just how to implement it, I suppose. But
yeah, and this is not about implementing it today. This is just about having the directors think about it. We can all basically explain that this is where people basically don't want to make a complaint but would like something to change. This is a mechanism for that to happen. And in my term as mayor, I've seen that a lot, where they wanted to have someone to have a quiet conversation, and that's what this is about. So it will be contingent on people, like people that get on with people, to have a quiet, non-threatening chat and seeing if we can solve it. And if we do, we can find that communities get on better together. So it's like a really positive thing with no negative. Like, as far as the residents, all of their options are still there. So all of the normal things they can do are still there. This is completely separate. This is like really dealing with the people that don't want to make a complaint, but do want to, for instance, see if something can be sorted out.
Mr Mayor, just because I'm probably the one doing the report. So it's probably it's in addition to things that council's not traditionally responsible for as well. Is that what you're saying?
It can be, or where they don't want to make a complaint about, so it's outside the normal, where basically people want to have a friendly chat about something, and it would be something that we wouldn't like roll out overnight. We've got to think about.
Yeah. So like normally, like for cattle on the road, generally someone rings up, we just pick up the phone, we have a conversation, we put it back in, we do that stuff. But it's things like maybe stormwater is probably a good one. Like council don't deal with stormwater because it's actually it's a civil matter between two parties. Where you got that's a common one. We get it after every time there's a rain event and water flows from one person's property into the other. Council doesn't have any legal powers under it. But that's probably a good example. That's what you're talking about, is where if someone wants to bring up a complaint about the water coming from the neighbour's block, where council could come in and mediate. They don't have any power, but
no. And this is just a friendly conversation. It would be very clear up front that this is not anyone telling you what to do. This is trying to solve it. The other one could be like, I've had cases where people say, for instance, it could be that 4 a.m. in the morning, and all they need to do is shift the truck, for instance. But would you like to put in a CR? No, I don't want to put a CR, right? So it's that quiet conversation on the side, and that's about, and it would be made very clear this is not part of to do with planning. This is actually good neighbours having a chat, because I believe a lot of residents would try and solve issues if they knew about it, and you didn't come in and tell them what to do. So this is about the opposite of that. And it's a process where someone can bring something up and quietly have a conversation. And I've sometimes done that myself because people have asked me to, but I do think it's a real benefit for council to have this for harmony.
Yeah, because I guess so the fences and stormwater are probably the common ones we get. and there is probably no office in Roma to deal with that, because it's normally a QCAT matter. Probably the other one we get is probably animal welfare, where it's DPI and trucks with noises. That's a police one there too, where they actually do have a local agent there. But no, that's give me a bit more of a...
And it's basically someone making them aware of it, that they know about it, and if they can try and solve it, and it could mean, well, I'm only doing this because of this, and you go, okay, cool. But once you've got, like it can get very messy. Okay, Councillor Taylor.
Can I just ask, Director Rob, in those circumstances where you've had stormwater problems and that, you do go and have a chat though, don't you?
We do. End up developing a flyer for that, and just directing people what they can do and what people's obligations are.
So you have a quiet conversation.
Yeah, because to the average ratepayer, you would think that was a council thing, being stormwater. And I always say to the people, at the end of the day, you look at what power do we have, and we don't. So we talk to people, we advise them where to go.
So us having a policy, would that give you more power?
Won't give us any
I'm
power.
hearing that this is not actually about council matters necessarily, so I'm not sure what powers
You wouldn't.
intervene in private matters.
You wouldn't have any powers at all.
And what skills these people will have in terms of mediation, because there's a whole profession around mediators to intervene between different parties. So I guess there's some element of concern that a staff member would be
Putting themselves in the middle of something.
in the middle of something that is actually not
There's some
a
probably,
council responsibility.
Julie, that we've things like,
But somewhere it's, I think there's a difference between things that are on that line between clarifying where council's powers begin and end and how we can facilitate that. But I think it would be helpful if we understood, is this between family, like a street, if there's disputes between people in the street, where does this begin and end? And what does that mean for the safety of the staff getting involved in the middle of this?
probably a couple there. Like it's the things like I said, the stormwater and the dividing fences one. We do a lot of information around that because it's a common, frequently asked question, and we help people in the right
And
direction.
people would think that perhaps it was a council function or something.
So
but-
we do a lot. So I think there's some stuff there we're already doing in there. It's probably the ones that we probably need to think about is things like the animal welfare is one quite common we get, and when you've got a local agency that can deal with that one, we probably haven't been. We don't deal with those inquiries too much there because you've got a local for animal welfare, and I think the other one's probably is like the truck noise. That's a police matter there, but no, that's given me a bit of feedback there. So
Councillor Burkett.
It's a weird one because in small towns, a lot of people, if they don't turn to the police, they turn to the council and say when they don't know exactly what you're saying. But I've had an incident where this gentleman was across the road from this flats, for the want of a better term, and they're in the middle of the owners are putting a deck, and this fellow wanted council. He wanted me to sort of see what we could do to stop that deck from happening because of the noise that they'd make on the deck when the deck got there. Because he's had issues with them already, and he's thinking that'll escalate it even worse, and then he won't be able to sell his place. So they use any little angle they can through council.
Correct.
To try to. So maybe it's an education process right through because, like I said, I've been asked to be a mediator because I'm a councillor on a.
Do you
thing I
feel
don't want anything
equipped
do
to
with.
be a mediator, councillor?
Sorry?
Do you feel equipped? Is
No,
your
I-
skill set of that such that?
Yeah, they look at say 2 or 3 people around that can do that, and they're like, I'm not one. But I think there's a lot of grey areas what people think council can and can't do, and what angle they can use to use the council to get that to their end result.
But also, this good neighbours policy is not being a mediator down to a mediation. It's nothing like that. It's having a quiet chat and seeing whether it can be solved in a preliminary way where the people don't want to make a complaint through the normal process.
What if it
So,
can't?
well, nothing can be done.
Well, what does council do then?
If the resident does not want to put an official complaint in about something, right, then, and if they say no, but I would like if you could make them aware of it in a confidential way, then that's what we do. And then, for instance, oh, great, oh, okay, the noise has stopped, happy days. It's a win for the community. But it is not mediation, it is not QCAT, it is not any of those things. I'm talking about a very relaxed preliminary discussion where it's not someone going over and saying, mate, can you chop your trees down, and they go, well, like it's a preliminary way to try and get neighbours, not necessarily neighbours, could be people down the street, just everyone getting on well in a pleasant way. And what I've noticed over the time I've been mayor is that this would be very beneficial for harmony. And if you're worried about, how's it going to work? Well, there's a few steps to this. This is just one thing, which is, throwing it in the mix and getting the feedback on what they're understanding, and we'll talk about it again if it's supported.
It's not things like party noise and that.
No, definitely not.
Because that's the way we get
No,
noise.
that's the
There's two
police.
types of noise we don't deal with. We don't deal with party noise and we don't deal with vehicle noise.
But sorry, the mayor's not saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor, this is not necessarily just council matters. Can you provide that clarification? Is it because if it's a matter within council's jurisdiction, there's no question that we manage that through our customer requests and our complaints if they're an affected person. But what you're talking about, for the benefit of the report writer, is things that may be causing grievances between people in the street or people in the neighbours. You've clarified it's not just neighbours, so the heading is misleading now because it could be anyone in the street who's got a grievance against one another. What you're saying is that the staff member would get involved to try and resolve this grievance, which is but is not necessarily a council matter.
It could be a council matter, it may not be, but if you wanted to clarify about the party noise, definitely not. We're not the police. The police go around and deal with those issues. However, it could be, which is not a party, but if you do get up at 5 a.m. in the morning and wakes people up on Sunday and they don't want to put a CR, so they're outside the system and we've kept them outside the system because we don't, then we could have a quiet chat. And I'm talking about a very preliminary discussion. We're not talking about being a mediator. We're talking about having a preliminary discussion if the local director feels that they have someone or themselves that could have those discussions. And if they can't, then obviously would be part of developing the policy. There may be no one to be able to have those discussions, but it is a benefit that I see that works well, and it probably works really well in smaller councils that get it right. Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does the move wish to speak to it? I certainly do. In the time being mayor, I've had many people that don't want to get inside our CR system. They don't want to write it down, and it nearly happens on a weekly basis, even if I can encourage them. And I'm talking about very preliminary discussions that actually can benefit, making someone aware of something that could benefit if they'd like to change, and if it's so it's not detailed, it's not dispute resolution as in QCAT or any of that. It's
But it's still a level of dispute, isn't it, Mr. Mayor?
well, very minor. It's what people that come from the bush would call about having a chat.
Sorry to interrupt you. Maybe is it another level that we've got a complaint process when it's a complaint? You're saying, is it just before it? Is there an earlier intervention step that can be taken before it becomes part of the complaint process to try and keep neighbours talking to each other?
However, this is not, I keep hearing, Mr. Mayor, from what you're saying, that this is something that falls outside the council jurisdiction.
It can be exactly like
That's the point. I
well,
don't have
no,
an issue
both in and
whatsoever.
out, both in and out.
The in and out, the inside of things is simply an adjustment to our complaint process that allows for an early intervention. I don't have an issue with that. That's what council, when it looks at our complaint management policy, and council might say, okay, well, before you put in a written complaint, you might need to do this. That can already be considered as part of the complaint management policy that council must have. The issue here, and where we need the clarification for the purpose of the report author, is beyond council's jurisdiction. We need more information about if it's not a local government matter, but we're just wanting to have to embed ourselves in neighbourhood disputes or grievances or neighbourly disputes, what that looks like. That's the area. I'm not concerned about the local government bit.
And there's some parts of it, I think I'm saying, the CEO is saying there, and there's some parts of that we're not legislatively involved in, and we provide advice on like the stormwater and that. We've developed fact sheets on that, and I'm pretty clear on that part of it. So we're already doing that, and there's probably other areas of issues in the community that we're not sort of responsible for, but we get the complaints so many times. We've actually developed a process and fact sheets and help people and try and educate them and provide that to the neighbours and that as well.
And who to contact and all of
have
that sort of thing. Yeah.
We don't say to people that's not our job. We do provide that, so it's just probably expanding. That's how I would see if you're going to do that is providing the information on how to deal with it. We provide like the stormwater one. We provide the information to the neighbour, even though that's just one instance, but it's probably there's other instances out there. You're saying.
Well, from what the CEO has painted, the picture is completely the opposite of what you're thinking, CEO. Like embedding ourselves in neighbourhood disputes is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a high-level conversation, a friendly conversation, that there is an issue in making people aware of it. And it is, these things are outside our remit already, like for instance, that overland flow that we get asked all the time because the actual residents expect that council is the person that deals with that. So this is very high level. It's nothing like embedding in neighbourhood disputes. It's actually completely the opposite.
I think you've confirmed what I've said, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, you're welcome to your view, CEO. Okay, so moving on, I'll speak to the motion. This is an opportunity for even more harmony in our rural towns in the Maranoa by having someone that when they don't want to go down the standard path of putting a complaint in, which obviously suits some people, but others are outside the system. They're getting no support at the moment. And the benefit of being able to have the quiet chat confidentially where someone can raise it in a pleasant way where I believe the resident would thank council for making them aware of it is a very good thing to actually implement and consider as part of our operating locally, because it is putting the local back into council. So having this opportunity to have that quiet conversation, it is not in depth in any way. It's not embedding in dispute resolution or anything. It's just having the quiet chat so that it doesn't ever, it's got chances of improving situations in communities. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I strongly oppose this policy. I think that if this gets up, we're actually opening council up to a huge risk, because what if council gets involved in civil matters and they can't come to an agreement? Then they'll be having community members out there who are blaming council for not being able to get the outcome that they've got an expectation that council will have. I think this is a huge risk to council and to our reputation. I actually also think that we are opening up a huge risk to our staff members. Our staff members are not trained. They're not mediators. They don't have the training to be able to do this, and nor do they have the authority to deal with civil matters. What I'm really concerned about is that if a neighbour has a problem with a neighbour and they thought that they could go to the neighbour and the neighbour would be open to a discussion, they would do it. The reason they'd want to come to council or someone else is because they know already that the response they're going to get from their neighbour is going to be maybe a cranky response. So instead of the neighbour dealing with their neighbour with their problem, you're proposing to send one of our staff members in so that our staff members cop the abuse instead of the neighbours being able to sort it out. Because if they could sort it out, they would in a friendly, non-violent, non-cranky way. You're actually asking our staff members to go in there and cop that abuse. I actually don't think that's the right thing to do. And you're right, maybe a high-level conversation and it might work, but when it doesn't work and when it's our staff members getting abused and they're not trained to do it, I think this is asking too much of our staff members. I think it is opening up to council to too much risk, and I think that we're going to confuse our residents. Our residents now mostly know when to come to council if they have an issue, or when to go to the police when they have an issue, or when they might, if they didn't feel comfortable, go to another neighbour and ask them to help them without a problem with their other neighbour. They're going to be confused if they think that they come to council and we can solve all their problems. We just can't solve all their problems. I actually really believe that we are opening ourselves up to huge risks. I don't believe our staff members wear the right colour uniform to deal with civil matters. That belongs to the boys in blue. That is the police to do this and to keep harmony in our community. This is not a council role to have a good neighbours policy. And so I just strongly oppose it, and I think it is so much risk to council that we can have negative feedback on this.
Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Councillor
May I just like to speak? I think at this point in time, we're jumping to too many conclusions. I would hope any report that comes back will map out what's within council's jurisdictions and what's not. I think I can understand what people are getting concerned about, but I think we're jumping the gun a bit.
Yeah, that's probably, because I'm probably the one doing the report, that's probably where I was coming from there too. I haven't formed an opinion one way or the other. It's just that the report will be pointing out the pros and cons and the issues and the most common complaints, that sort of stuff. It'll just be a report around it, not actually the policy. It'll just be a report back on, as council said, yeah.
Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor O'Neill.
Through the chair, I don't support this because I would have liked to have seen more detail. Often when these councillor reports come to council, they're more specific. This isn't. We've gleaned some of what you want because you verbaled it today. It would have been far better to have some supporting documentation from yourself, given the policy is solely born from you as mayor. It does put a lot of pressure on staff to try and come up with a report at a upcoming council meeting. But I've got some concerns around this, that we're delving into areas that aren't the responsibility of council. Similar to Councillor Burkett, I've been involved with a particular matter in one of our smaller communities where the person who raised it wanted to remain anonymous, and that in itself is a challenge. But it was a very sensitive matter, but had some public health risks with the issue that was presented to me. Our staff, I can't fault them. They work through meticulously to get a resolution. And often when there is a concern raised, a complaint, someone isn't going to be happy with an outcome. Like if you've got a barking dog and the neighbour complains about the barking dog, someone's going to lose out. Either they have to do something to the barking dog to restrain it, to stop it barking, to move it on, or the other neighbour has to continue listening to the barking dog. Both parties aren't going to be happy. And I think council does an exceptional job when they deal with matters that are in the remit of council. I do have concerns, and Councillor Hancock has articulated it here already, the risk to our frontline staff with dealing with civil matters. That isn't the remit of council. There are other jurisdictions in our community that can deal with those matters. And therefore, I think, if anything, the suggestion by Director Rob to embed an initial step into our complaints policy that would have that chat, as you have already commented on, Mayor Golder, have that initial chat, that high-level chat on issues that are pertinent to the role of council. Outside of that, there are other, as I said, jurisdictions that can deal with those matters. So I can't support this with the level of detail that's here today. And I think we're opening ourselves up to a can of worms that is going to disappoint members of our community.
I just want to speak, not
Yeah, please, go ahead.
I agree there's benefits for Bay. I definitely hear the concerns there, and I agree with some of those, and I can see yours. I think probably at the moment we without even knowing, we are probably solving a lot of issues when people come up and talk to me. We probably are nipping things in the butt, and I'd like to think common sense. I hate how the world's gone, that you're not game to say nothing because you're worried about what's going to be the outcome and that, instead of seeing something wrong and hopefully sorting it out like that, because things in the community, and you only got to get a different dynamic to a small community, and that can escalate when you can see that it can be nipped in the butt straight away. I'm a bit like Councillor McMullen. I think this is only asking for a report. I'm on the fence with this, and hopefully when we know what we can and can't do, and then my mind will be made up. But at the moment, we're only asking for a report, but I definitely see both sides. So that's where I sit at the moment.
Does anyone wish to speak against the motion?
I just have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Please go ahead.
Through you to Madam CEO. It's just been raised twice now about just getting a report. That is a cost to council, isn't it, by just doing a report? And so I'm just clarifying, like, if...
Yeah, and that's a good point, Councillor Hancock, because the reason that we introduced this from a governance perspective is that it does take staff away from the plan that council itself has adopted. So each year, council adopts an operational plan and budget, which outlines the priorities for the year. And the more of these reports that we get, the more the staff are diverted into other areas and away from what council as a whole has already said are the priorities for the coming year. So we introduced this concept of the request for an agenda report so that we didn't waste council resources, that we had a very clear picture of whether council supported resources being allocated to this topic. So the intention is that we get as much information as possible, because the officers could go off and do a report and spend hours of effort on it, only to come back to find out that it was not what the author had in mind when they initially visualised this topic. So the purpose of this is really, really important, so that it doesn't waste resources, is that we have a very clear understanding what is in the person's mind, so that council as a whole can discuss and identify which bits that of the concept they agree with or don't agree with, anything else that they would like explored, so that when that report comes back, well, firstly, whether council as a whole agrees to diverting resources away from the operational plan onto this, and secondly, is there any other issues that council would like covered within the report, or is there anything that they don't agree with investing resources in? Because there is an opportunity cost, is that the people in this room will be the people actually going away and doing this report. So the question for the council is this important enough at the moment to divert resources, or is it something that should be considered later when we do the next operational plan or something to that effect, because trying to get policies through at the moment is a very lengthy process at the best of times. This is proposing another policy and another report. So that's why it is important to have the discussion today before hours of effort go into the topic, which has evolved the more the conversation has been discussed today. Like it started off good neighbours, now it's different and different and different.
Just to correct what you said there, CEO, I've got actually in the motion when the newly appointed directors, so it's not the people in the room, because it will be all of the directors having a discussion together. Does anyone...
So is it the directors that are going to do the report, or?
Yeah, with the newly appointed directors, having a discussion between them all.
So Director Rob won't be doing the report?
Well, he would be one of the directors, I would imagine. Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Then I'll sum up.
Sorry, I've called up the complaints policy as well, Councillor, just as a matter of, there's actually if it's within council's jurisdiction, there's a two-step process whereby if someone speaks, they can have a chat with the manager and the manager can try and sort it at that level. So that happens, that's just a matter of normal daily business. If it's like, we do that all the time. Like if it's something that we're involved with, the manager has the opportunity to solve it. And at that point, if it's resolved to the person's satisfaction, it doesn't progress. It's only when it gets more complex that then the director gets involved. If the director can't solve it, they bring it to council. So yeah, please don't think that the staff don't do this every day. Probably every day is not entirely accurate, but it's part of our normal operations that we try and solve it at the manager level. And if it can't, the concern with this is if it's beyond the council's jurisdiction, that's where the blurriness arises.
Okay, I'll sum up. This is an opportunity which I believe has been overcomplicated to the max. This is an opportunity where a high-level discussion can be made to make neighbours aware, and that when I say neighbours, I'm talking about plural neighbours. We're all neighbours in the Maranoa, about issues confidentially without causing conflict. It is a very preliminary, high-level discussion that I believe that the director level will understand that they would have been involved in many of these in the future. This will not necessarily always be a council responsible matter, but it could be something that the public always goes to council to ask a question. And we're already doing it now. In relation to putting staff at the front line having to deal with this is completely inaccurate. I don't believe any of the directors would want to do that, and I as mayor would not want to do that. This will be if we believe we have the knowledge and the capacity to be able to carry this out. And as the CEO said, maybe sometimes managers might even be doing it already. And this is
if
about...
it's within our jurisdiction.
It is, but there is things like overland flows not within our jurisdiction, but every man and his dog would expect that we'd have some involvement in that because we are the local council. But we don't, but we can advise, and sometimes it is just having a discussion. It would be very sad to believe that people were nasty or going to be at each other. This is before that happens, and this is when someone would just like someone to have a talk about it. So I believe this is a crucial part of operating locally and just trying to have more harmonious communities, and I believe if we go down this path, there's a lot of due diligence before we'd ever consider doing it. Okay, so we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 6-3 if I can call for a division.
Now, yes, bit of news, Melbourne's had an earthquake, some serious damage in Melbourne,
Oh, dear. Dear, oh dear.
5.8.
They're okay. Item 16.3, road inspection, Gunnawarra Road, Mitchell. I'd like to move that the maintenance and capital works identified from the road inspection be referred to the local director of Baringa for further investigation when the position is filled. We have a second to Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? Do we have a question?
Just a question. Mr Mayor, have you passed on the...
Yeah, I've sent them
report?
through and we've got them in a CR, or we've got the information in the photos and that I did that day. Okay, so does anyone wish to speak to it? I would like to thank the fact that we had a resident, long-time resident, take the opportunity to spend a good part of a reasonable part of the day meeting us and taking us around issues in the Baringa area, in the Mitchell area. And there's definitely lots of challenges and improvements that we need to make in our road maintenance to bring it in line to our friends at Merway. And I believe that operating locally will be the first step in solving issues at the coalface. And I'd like to thank the resident for the time to take us around and show us as a council. Does anyone else wish to speak? Then we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item 16.4, Warroo Sporting Complex Projects. Councillor Hancock.
I'd like to move that a report be brought back to council with costings on building a roof over the newer amenities block and on doing basic repairs on the old shower block.
We have a second, Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
Yes, please.
Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, this is a project that has been brought up many times when we used to hold the advisory group meetings in Surat for the Warroo Sporting Complex. As those meetings don't happen anymore, Jeff Moore came down and saw Councillors O'Neill and Taylor and myself when we did our out and about in Surat, and asked us whether we would bring this forward to a council meeting. It is a project that has been on the books for a long time, and he would just like to move that forward. And so therefore, that's why we brought this report today, to get those costings back on that project.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Just wondering, is there a CR, are there been various CRs in place over the years for this, and is there a current CR?
Are you asking that to me? Yep. It's been brought up through advisory group meetings, so there's many minutes of the advisory group meetings. Those advisory group meetings were tabled through council meetings. And so because there is no advisory group meeting anymore, Jeff come and saw us to bring it up to the council.
He came to a meeting. I've just got one other question. So the Warroo Sporting Complex Advisory Group, so how'd they request that? Was that in a letter or was that just verbally?
So Warroo Supporting Complex Advisory Group was one of the advisory groups you, Councillor, have decided not to have advisory groups anymore. And so that was happening with the group down in Surat for the last term of council. Mm-hmm. So there's minutes. There'll be minutes on file if you want to request them.
Yeah, I'm just wondering where the evidence is that it's still an issue, that's all. I mean, I take...
So you don't take what I'm saying in the two other councillors?
But as far as additional information is concerned, I thought there may have been a letter where they had written to someone asking for this help. That's what I was wondering. Is there a letter in place? Or?
No, there's... So if you don't believe me, the Mayor's been at meetings as well.
Not that I don't believe you, Councillor Hancock. I'm asking, is there a request
through the advisory group meetings?
Warroo Sporting Complex Advisory Group, is there a request
through
in writing?
Through the minutes of the meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. Just on that question, Councillor Hancock, did you put a CR in after you had a meeting, or is this the only form?
I haven't put a CR in, Mr Mayor, because it's actually a project. And so there's no budget, and it was an outcome of the fact that we now no longer have advisory group meetings, and so Jeff asked us whether we could take it to the meeting, just like you've brought stuff for projects to council before as well.
Can I just ask, I take it well there's no advisory groups, but if it's been through a few years, so it's never been put through this CR, I don't know if that's...
There would have been CRs from the minutes of the meeting years ago.
That's to me, the no advisory group's null and void, because if it has been brought up to whoever, I'm just wondering why it hasn't been done the last 3 years.
Because there's no budget been put to it.
It's put up for budget consideration, but obviously with competing other budgets, it didn't get up, so.
No, that's good. If it'd been through a budget thing, that's all. Thank you.
So I'm just wondering, just going on from that, can I suggest that the report that comes back maybe includes something along those lines? I mean, so that we all can understand it.
Or we don't get lost.
So that we don't, that's all.
I mean...
You mean all the priorities for the Warroo Sporting Complex?
No,
is that what you're thinking?
I'm certainly not accusing anyone of anything. All I want to know is, has it been put into the system, and is it still there? Is it still current?
As the Mayor says from time to time, that sometimes people don't want to put things in the system. That's why the Mayor doesn't put things into CRs and put some things directly to the council meetings. So there seems...
I've answered my question, that it's been, the reason's been overlooked because of budget for the last few years.
But this may have
It's come up quite a few times at the meetings over the
there's
years.
minutes.
It's come up, and then it's come up time and time again, but obviously there were
I
other
would ask the Mayor to make sure then that if that's a concern, that everything that comes as a councillor agenda report, could it be logged as a CR first before the report comes, because there seems to be...
I haven't seen too
I'm
many of the mayors come
talking
in.
about this specific agenda item, and I'm asking a question. And I'm just asking, in the report, can those sort of things be brought back to us in the report? The things that Councillor Hancock mentioned, minutes, whatever. Just
Yeah, but that's a reasonable request if...
Yeah, so we'll make sure that it's in a CR for the...
Normally...
That's raised with these.
Can I ask a question? How many of the mayors' agenda items have said it's been requested by someone else?
Well, we have... there are multiple examples that I can remember where the question was asked, has a CR been raised? And the Mayor quite often says sometimes people don't want to raise a CR. He wants to bring it to the table.
My point is, this particular item said it's been requested by District Development Association, which some of us know about.
No, sorry, Warroo Sporting.
Warroo Sporting, sorry, but Warroo Sporting, whatever it was called, but that said in the agenda. In the agenda where some councillors are not familiar with anything to do with Warroo Sporting Complex Advisory Group.
So, Councillor Hancock, are you happy to have those minutes from where it was requested brought back in your report?
Whatever proof that council needs to make them feel comfortable that this isn't just a request from me. And I'm sure I'm happy to share Jeff Moore's phone number.
No, my question is just how come it hadn't been done. That's my question.
Okay, so we've got a motion, we've got a seconder. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I actually thank Jeff for coming forward and reminding me of this request that has been brought forward from the advisory group meetings. The asset of that new amenities block for that facility was a real achievement for the advisory group at the time. Jeff's core concern is that without a shade structure over it, that it will deteriorate and therefore that it will need to have more money spent on it quicker than it would do if it had a roof over it. So, and as the years have gone on, he has just reminded us of this project. And so I'd just like to thank him for that. It would be a great project for him.
Does anyone else wish to speak against or for the motion? I'll certainly speak for the motion. I think that's a great opportunity. Jeff's obviously, I believe, president of the shooters down there and does a great job, as do all the other different members of the sporting complex down there. So anything we can do to push these forward is a great opportunity. Does anyone else wish to speak? Does the move wish to sum up?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just look forward to the report. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. I'd like to move also on this item that a report come back in relation to the painting of the canteen building and the upkeep to bring it in line to what the volunteers have done with the grandstand and to have a price brought back for general maintenance to the canteen part, which joins on to the grandstand.
I'm happy to second it, Mr Mayor, but I think I'll ask Director Rob to help me with this. Money in the, Manager, there's money in the budget for the upgrade of the canteen, I think. Am I correct?
A significant amount.
That's
right.
Quite a large amount.
We've
Large
got
amount to be
funding
done
for
there.
that.
To refurbish it, yeah.
So this is what I'm actually asking in this motion is the outside. So you looked at all the volunteers painted the grandstand and then there's a stop and there is nothing happened with the sort of council responsibility part. And what I'm saying is that when we get the report back, that we have a look at that, and obviously if it's already covered in it, but we get it to happen. And I believe that I was speaking to the Donna Stewart, and she was noticing that, and so I'll put that in at the same time as well.
So, do I have a question then?
Yes.
So, Donna Stewart has asked you to bring this forward to the council?
Yes.
So what's the difference between her asking you and then we get asked something and it's all of a sudden, you know, we're getting questioned whether somebody actually did ask us, but now you're just bringing her name to the
I
table.
wasn't saying that.
I'm just saying,
I
there's
think,
two sides of this story here.
I think
I just
Council
wanted more information.
Councillor Edwards has not had the benefit of the advisory committee information that has come through.
I wonder why.
So, well, because he wasn't on
Because it's
council
not
at
there,
that term.
exactly.
No,
Exactly, because we never even got a briefing on what was good or bad about that either.
and
But that's not
now
my
the
point.
opportunity, councillor Taylor, will be that the opportunity is that that information will be brought forward, as will the same thing to do with some issues that need dealing with. Okay, we got a mover and a seconder. So that was councillor, Deputy Mayor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 8-1 if I can call for a division.
Who was the division, Mr Mayor?
Councillor Taylor was in opposition. Okay, moving on to the late open. L1, annual valuation consultation for the Maranoa region. I would like to move that council recommend to the Department of Resources not to undertake an annual valuation of land in the Maranoa local government area. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion?
Can I just ask a question?
Please go ahead.
Can I ask why?
Yeah, certainly. I don't believe it's the time to be doing another valuation. I think we had significant consequences of the last valuation, and I don't believe it's the year to be doing that. And also, generally, they can't do valuations on every area at once, so I do believe it's an opportunity to give another area an opportunity to be valued.
So, Mr Mayor, there's already a motion on the books about undertaking a rating methodology review and a review of categories. Wouldn't it make sense to understand where that's going to land so that you can take those considerations into account as part of your rating review?
No, I don't think. I think they're totally separate. What we do with rates, we'll obviously see what happened last year, and we won't have that information because I believe it needs to happen early. But the amount of rating categories and and what's council's decision. I think they're completely separate.
Well, there's two things that make up rates. It's the cent and the dollar, the valuations. So if you're doing a rating methodology review, only knowing one of those factors and not the other, as current as you can get it, it'll be an opportunity lost to work out what categories are most appropriate going forward.
I think we spent enormous amount of time with cents in the dollar. I would hope that the review of the rating categories is about rating categories and how we can allow for these big swings and still have relativity in our rating categories. Okay, so anyone wish to speak? I'll speak for the motion. I do believe it causes great turmoil every time that happens. The department decided last year to do that. It has happened. I believe it is not the year to be doing it this year. I do believe it's an opportunity for other council areas that possibly have not been rated because they tend to take this in cycles. And I believe that's in the best interest of the local government area. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion?
Can I just ask another question, please?
Councillor Taylor.
In here it says whether we do it or not, we have to pay for it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Like there's last year was, 2021 was $79,551.85. So I'm assuming that it'll be about $80,000 and we're not going to do it. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's happened in many years. You also can look at the effect that it will have in doing it. I'm looking at the bigger picture, but anyway, let's get into but the point is I think the most simple way to explain it, we get charged valuation fees whether they never get done for 10 years or they get done every year. Okay, does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll express the same view I did when this came before council 12 months ago. I was on council when we advocated to not undertake a review. They didn't undertake a review. Whether they listened to council or not is irrelevant. The community thought that we made the decision. There were significant fluctuations in the next valuation, which had a huge impact on land tax. Again, not our responsibility, but council got lumped with it. I strongly believe that we need to let the Queensland government decide as to whether there should be a land valuation or not, and we stay mute on it. And that way, if there is a negative impact, it doesn't come back onto council. They'll make the decision regardless of what decision's made here today. 12 months ago, a majority of councillors here resolved not to undertake it. They undertook one. I think we should stay out of it and let the state government make the determination because they'll do that anyway.
I have a question, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
In the last 10 years, how many valuations have we done or we haven't done?
It's in the report.
Okay, thank you.
Mr Mayor, can I make an amendment to the resolution?
Yes, please go ahead.
I'd like to move that council, I'm going to say probably leave the decision to the Department of Resources. Don't want to be saying yes or no.
Make no comment.
Make no
Make no
comment.
submission in this regard.
Make no submission.
I'm happy to second that
Because we're
amendment.
not, what's recommended either way well, what recommended, sorry, was that council recommended.
So
Make no
therefore
sub-
they decide then.
Well, they're going to do that anyway.
do it anyway.
And that way it doesn't throw us under the bus.
We make no comment, yeah.
Yeah, that's just my,
I'm happy to second that if the mover doesn't want to accept it.
No, I won't be accepting that.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a amendment. Does anyone wish to speak to does the mover wish to speak to the amendment?
yeah, Mr. Mayor, my idea behind it is just that we recommend they do it, we'll be in trouble. We recommend not to do it and they still go ahead and do it, we'll be in trouble. By make no submission, leave it up to the department to make a decision. Probably not the,
Yeah, that's right.
Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? I certainly will. I've never been one to not make a decision. I believe that you have to focus every day on the people of the Maranoa and what they want, and I don't believe being silent. It might be the safe bureaucratic approach, but I certainly don't believe it's a decision that we need to make for the people of the Maranoa. And I do not think it's in this interest of the people of the Maranoa. And I understand the department may make their own decision, and that's fine. I do think we need to make a decision as councillors, and I certainly won't be supporting this amendment. Does someone wish to speak for the amendment? Councillor O'Neill.
I wholeheartedly support the amendment proposed by the Deputy Mayor. I think it shows that the Deputy Mayor is using the experience of the last 5 years to come up with a sound decision that council should make. Ultimately, we're not making a decision if we go with the substantive motion, because the decision lies with the department, not with council. They're asking us to express an opinion, which ultimately will come back to bite this council. And so therefore I wholeheartedly support the amendment, and I congratulate the Deputy Mayor for putting it forward.
Does someone wish to speak against the motion or for the councillor?
Being a new councillor, I don't really know what the story is, but I think I will be in favour of actually letting the Department of Resources know how I feel, so I'll definitely be voting against it.
Okay, does someone wish to speak for the motion, the amendment I should say? Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, I guess I just want to speak. I just think it's wrong that we're going to pay them about $80,000 whether they do it or they don't. And so it's $80,000. Basically, by the first one, we're just giving away the $80,000. Whereas at least doing it this way, we may actually get something for our money, and we're actually putting the decision back on them so that they can have the consequences for that decision.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Guthrie.
I don't understand why we're getting charged the $80,000 each year from this particular proposal. I'm assuming that that's just a cost that they pass on to every LGA or every local government organisation to actually fund the valuation process. I'm not sure on this, but I do believe that if they're asking us for an opinion to opt out and decide not to give a preference one way or the other, we're abrogating the responsibility that was given to us. They may take no notice of what we actually say, but to step back and go, oh, it doesn't really matter, you're basically going, we don't really care one way or the other as to what you do. And I do think we need to care. We need to express an opinion either in favour or against to actually show that we do consider, look through, we're advocating on behalf of the residents of the Maranoa. I think not to have an opinion really speaks very, very much about the fact that we're not doing what we've been elected to do.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Amendment, I should say. Okay, no one against. We've all had a chance. We're going to go to the vote for the amendment. All those in favour? All those against? Carried 5-4.
Mr Mayor, I wasn't looking at who.
In favour was you, me, John, Joe and Wendy.
Thank you.
So there's nothing more to be done on that,
We're going to move where we're going to move still, haven't we? Mr Mayor,
Yep.
I'll move that council.
Well, the amendment became the motion. I mean, we've got to be confused there. But to do it,
we've got to do it again.
Yeah, you better, yeah.
So just so I'm clear, because they've asked for views, we still write a letter to them to say that we. Is that
okay, I'll move that council write to the value, what's it called? The
Value
Department of
General.
Resources, advising Value General. Well, as advising it, we have resolved not to make it, resolved
Not to submit our
Not
view,
to submit a
not
view.
to submit views in relation to this
Yeah,
matter.
that'll do, thanks.
Submit views, because the first thing, I'm seeking your views.
Yeah.
So if, on this, and that is consistent with the submission and views.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
So is that what, but don't we go off what the amendment was? Don't you have, because that was approved, the amendment was approved, so what did the amendment say?
No submission.
Make no submission.
Then we're gonna
at the
make
start.
but you gotta do it in a letter.
Like we ordinarily
So
do
that's in line with the
meeting
amendment.
correspondence,
Yeah.
unless you want a letter to say, council resolved that council make no submission in this regard, that's,
So as long as it's in line with the amendment.
well, we'll just write a letter with, based on that council.
Resolution.
Sorry, Kel, go back up to the, that council make no. And we'll just do a courtesy note to
Yeah.
say that council resolved, so that way they
Resolve
know
the
that we're
following.
not missing a due date,
Yeah.
that, yep.
So that's going to be the motion then, council
Yeah.
make no submission in this regard.
Yeah.
So then we have to go to the vote on that. So, so we got a mover and a second?
It's
I've
just
moved-
exactly what's
Well,
above,
I've
Cal.
moved it, Mr Mayor, so I suppose it.
Sorry, it's exactly the words from above.
But once we've passed the amendment, we've still got to vote on it, haven't we?
Yep.
Yeah, well, I've moved it, Mr Mayor, the amendment.
So we got a seconder? Councillor O'Neill. Any opposition? I'll speak in opposition. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor, spoke last.
And does anyone wish to speak in opposition? I don't agree with this, and I do apologise in my personal capacity for this. I don't agree with it. I do believe that the people of the Maranoa do ask us to stand up for them, and that's why I will not be supporting saying nothing when we should be saying something, I believe. Does anyone wish to speak for the amendment? The motion, I should say. Okay, does anyone wish to speak against? Does the mover wish to sum up?
No, thanks, Mr
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 5-4 if I can call for a division. Okay, moving on. Is there any more in that? L2, Southwest Queensland Regional Organisation of Council SWQROC membership arrangements. I would like to move that council nominate Councillor McMullen as Maranoa Regional Council's reserve representative for Southwest. Additional
Additional representative.
No, I've changed it because as far as I understand, it's when someone can't attend. Reserve representative for Southwest Queensland Regional Organisations of Council, SWQROC Incorporated. Councillor O'Neill,
Happy to second it, but I have a question.
please go ahead.
It says in the correspondence on page 12, endorsed at the Southwest Queensland Rock Management Committee meeting held on Friday the 2nd of July in St George. The Southwest Rock Incorporated full membership will include the mayor of each member council plus one other elected member as determined by each individual council. Not a reserve representative.
Well, that's not what I heard at the meeting. It was because people can't attend and they need a representative.
Perhaps we better get that clarification
Well,
before.
it's formal correspondence from your executive officer.
Yeah, but the idea was that when someone can't attend, that there was another representative there because there was a council there with no representative, and that's where it came from. Councillor Hancock.
So, Mr Mayor, why don't you leave it, so that we don't have to come back, rescind or do, why don't you leave it open and just put the additional and then just work it out, whether you're going and then if you can't cast, or whether you find out that it is 2 representatives and then you can both go, like, why
Because
don't?
Mayor, it then goes on to say in the full letter, this process will provide a total of 12 members for the association. They want 2 from each
They want
council to
2.
ensure we are complying with the Associations Incorporation Act 1981.
And it's about a quorum further down.
And the last paragraph, it refers to advising of our second member. It's a second member of the association.
In line with the Association Act, because it is a requirement for an association to have a minimum of 7 members, but they want to take it to 12.
Yeah, we've got a meeting on.
No,
tomorrow.
I can just make a phone call, councillors, if you're happy to lay it on the table for a short bit.
Well, I guess it would be in the minutes of the meeting.
I can just make a
It
phone
was
call and ask.
definitely a second representative talked about, and that was fine, but it wasn't, as far as I understood, to increase the quorum. It was actually in reserve, but I can.
It's just for the AGM. The strategic direction priorities management consisting of the mayors of the 6 member councils. However, for the purposes of the AGM, it will be necessary for a quorum of the full membership to be present, i.e. 7 of the 12 members.
So anyway, I need to get that clarified, because I definitely knew the fact that we were getting a backup representatives, because one of the councils didn't have anyone there because they couldn't, because.
Could you adjourn for just a moment or two if you don't want to lay it on the table, and I can just make a quick phone call.
Oh, that'll be quick enough.
We'll just adjourn for 5 minutes. Yeah, I'll change that motion if the second is happy to remove reserve and just have it as original. Now it's been explained more. And so take out reserve and,
Go back to additional is what you're saying?
yeah. And then,
Might be what Kelly's got here on the bottom. Is that what you're looking at, Mr Mayor?
oh yeah, right, okay. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Now, is the second happy with
Well,
that?
just, would you leave it just as it
Just
is at
as
the
it-
top? Because you put that annual general meeting, if by chance you are away and you say to Jeff, can you fill in? Well, it's against the intent of the resolution if it's not the same as,
But it also is that you will be a member.
Yeah.
So as it was originally listed, just it's best to just leave it as that.
yeah, if you delete reserve up the top there. Oh, okay. I'm happy with that as it is, yeah, as a second.
Righto. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour, 8-0.
Let's do something.
We haven't got anything laid on the table. No, I don't think so.
That'll be a first time, isn't it, really? Feather in the cap there,
Contact,
isn't it, really?
Okay, do you want to deal with conflicts?
Yes, well, I have one, but so does Councillor Hancock's going to have one, and she's not here, so that's going to be problematic. I would like to declare a conflict in C11, loadout systems, Roma, Saleyards. I'm obviously the declaring council, the person of interest is my wife. My wife manages the Secretariat for the Livestock and Rural Transport Association of Queensland. Their members, including the author of the correspondence that triggered this report, will suffer a benefit or loss depending on council's actions. The type of conflict is a declarable conflict of interest, and I will deal with this matter by leaving the room while it's discussed and voted on.
Councillor Hancock?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare a conflict as well.
Yeah.
Description C11, description loadout systems Roma Saleyards. Declaring councillor as myself. Person with the interest is GL and JM Hancock, my husband and myself. Particulars of interest, we own a truck and B-double and are users of the loadout facility. Type of conflicts, declarable conflict of interest, and action is I'll leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Right, any other conflicts? Had any other conflicts? No one's got any others? Righto, we'll go into close then. Do we have anyone with wording? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move in accordance with the provisions of section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012. The council resolved to close the meeting to the public to discuss confidential items that the council has considered necessary to close the meeting. In accordance with section 254J5 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the following table provides the matters to be discussed, and overview of what is to be discussed for the meeting is closed. C1, claim for damages trip incident. C2, application for conversion of tenure, lot 168 on WV 1553. C3 is state government surplus properties, Maranoa region. C4 is application for simultaneous road closure and opening lot 11 on WV 1954. C5 is access and use licence agreement. C6 is general waste contract. C7 is service delivery in Maranoa. C8 is Roma, Denise Spencerfield concept design appointment. C9, proposal for works on Blue Lagoon Road, Injune. C10, request for support. C11, loadout systems, Roma Saleyards. LC1, employee code of conduct. LC2, Mitchell Memorial Park upgrade.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Ladbrook, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, if we're all right, we're going to keep going on C1. Claim for damages, trip incident. Councillor Taylor.
I'd like to move that council reimburse the claimant the amount of $100, being the medical expenses incurred in the Maranoa Medical Centre on the following conditions. A, council and the claimant acknowledge that council is not legally liable for the incident. And B, the claimant agrees to accept the amount of $100 as full and final settlement of all claims arising from the alleged incident on the 20th of July 2021.
Seconder, Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. C2, application for conversion of tenure on lot 168 on WV 1553. Councillor Edwards.
I'll move that council advise the Department of Resources that it offers no objection to the conversion of TL0//236587 over lot 168 on WV 1553 to freehold tenure.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, page 23. C3, State Government Surplus Properties, Maranoa Region. Councillor Ladbrook.
I'd like to move that council submit and expressions of interest, the economic development of Queensland in land described on lot 145 on SP 321788 and listed as surplus government land register for the period of 9 to 16th of August 2021.
Okay, and I'm happy to second that.
Just with slightly different wording there, as surplus on government land register.
So do you want to clarify that through the mover? Did you mean to say? Do you want to just read that first
The middle bit.
again?
That council submit an expression of interest to Economic Development Queensland in land subscribed as lot 145.
Described.
Yeah. Described, and then you said the lot before. So we've got to move in a second. Do we have any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Thank you. Page 41. C.4 Application for simultaneous road closure and opening lot 11 on WV 1954. Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that Council 1 offer no objection to the application for simultaneous road closure and opening of Cornwall Road that traverses land described as lot 11 on WV 1954, provided the constructed section of Cornwall Road is fully contained within the dedicated road reserve. 2, as road manager, authorise the use of the land to be dealt with under the Land Act 1994 by the Department of Resources. And 3, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to sign Part C statement in relation to an application under the Land Act 1994 over state land in respect to this application.
We have a second, Councillor Hancock. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on to C5, access and use agreement. Use license agreement. Access and use license and access and use license agreement.
Easy for you to say.
I'd like to move that council extend the current licence approval for a further 5 months, and 2, implement its procurement process by calling for tenders to allow operators access and use of the freehold land located on the northern boundary of the Roma refuse site for the period of 3 years.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to second it with an addition of the dot point 3 if you... I'd like to add that the mayor authorise the mayor write to Carroll Industries, Mr Mick Carroll at Carroll Industries, advise him of this decision, right within a couple of days, say by Friday, with this decision, to give him something to...
Righto.
I've got the word, right to Carroll Industries, advising of this decision by Friday, the 20, whatever the date is, please.
He's already had a phone call today.
Oh, has he? Right, I just... Oh, okay, right. I just wanted...
And
Is there any reason why that's the mayor, sorry?
Well, I just...
Isn't the issue the correspondence?
Sorry?
You just want
Yeah.
that council
Okay, council
forward
council right.
correspondence
All right, yeah.
to Carroll Industries advising this decision by Friday the 20th.
Well, the only thing that I would be happy if the seconder would be is that we thank Carroll Industries for their work in the Maranoa. Would you as seconder be happy with that?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Righto, well that's what I'd like to do.
To Carroll Industries, thanking them for their work in the Maranoa and advising that this decision, we're thanking them for their
Recycling work?
work in the Maranoa.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I guess we probably represent the Maranoa, probably all of the Maranoa, I suppose, because he did the whole southwest, but we can only probably really acknowledge what he's done here.
For their work in the region. And then that could be the southwest region as well.
Yeah, I'd rather say Maranoa because we're talking about ourselves here.
Roma, was it?
Forward
Roma.
correspondence to Carroll Industries, thanking them for their work in the Maranoa and advise of this decision by Friday then.
And is it accurate to say recycling work? Because they recycle, don't they?
It is, Mr. Mayor, it's tire shredding and
So I'd just like to put in there recycling work. Because they use it for other things, they don't just bury it.
And I think in point two, the mayor might have said of the freehold land.
Use of,
Which,
I'm
what did
happy
you
to
mean?
say of its freehold land located on the northern boundary of the Roma refuse site for a period of 3 years. And should we not have an option in there as well, if both parties agree? Or will that lock it in if we say that?
in the actual draft agreement, anyway, we're just all attendant, the actual draft.
Because if they're making long-term commitments, like building and 3 years doesn't go quick.
But before we actually put it out, Mr. Mayor, I will bring, like I normally do.
Bring it back, will
I'll
you?
bring the actual, the lease back anyway
Right.
for council approval, and then we actually tender it, so.
So we could change it then, could we? Yeah.
Point one, Cal is a CE.
Mr. Mayor, maybe say for a minimum period of 3 years. That way.
Yeah, minimum. Yeah, that's good. Because normally if they're going to build sheds and do stuff on the land,
So maybe go minimum 3 years that way, if you do go 3 plus
yeah.
3.
Could we, yeah, minimum 3 years. Okay, so second, happy with that?
Happy with that, thank you.
Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? I certainly will. I'd like to thank Carroll Industries for all of the taking a lot of tyres that we've had in the region, the greater region of the southwest, and shredding them. I would like to say on behalf of council that we appreciate them being in the region and we look forward to working together in the future. And obviously that will also be open to any other as we're looking at going to tender, so everyone will be treated the same. But I'd really like to thank the company that we've worked with and look forward to everyone having the same opportunity in the future. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? If not, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. C6, Injune General Waste Contract. Councillor Guthrie.
I'd like to move that Council 1 approve BRACA Proprietary Limited to undertake the general waste contract at Injune in accordance with the conditions and requirements of the current contract held with Ms Julie Gray from Thursday the 2nd of September 2001. And 2, 2021? And 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer and or delegate to complete the necessary documentation to finalise a new contract with the proposed assignee. And 3, consult with the Injune community regarding BRACA Proprietary Limited's request to change the weekly collection day from Thursday to Friday, and a report of findings to be brought back to the last general meeting of council in October 2021 for consideration.
Do we have a seconder?
And we just changed it to ordinary meeting up there.
Oh, okay, ordinary meeting.
Is the seconder Councillor Edwards? Are you happy with that too, ordinary meeting change? Okay, do we have any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. C7, service delivery in the Maranoa. Do we have a mover? Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that Council 1 note the officer's report. 2, a letter be prepared having regard to the information sourced by council information in consultation with the service provider. 3, write to the NAB Chief Executive Officer and Board highlighting the following points. How receptive their local and regional staff are in response to council's initial inquiries. Thank the NAB for sharing their confirmation of continued commitment to the region. The council welcomes the continued delivery of services to the Maranoa region, including the towns of Roma, Mitchell and Injune. And in the event that service delivery changes are being considered in the future, that council be advised prior to implementation.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor O'Neill. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to think this is a great outcome, and I'd like to thank council staff, Manager Ed, for investigating as it was brought up this morning, and it's a great result, and hopefully it stays that way for a long time to come.
So does anyone else wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? State one if I can call for division. Okay, moving on to 74. C8, Roma Denise Spencer Pool Concept Design Appointment. Council McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council one, select facility design group to prepare the Roma Denise Spencer concept design in accordance with VP 238237. 2, enter into a medium-sized contractual arrangement with the facility design group by way of purchase order and allocate the project fees to WO 22307.
We have a seconder, Councillor Hancock. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Thank you. Page 89. C9, proposal for works on Blue Lagoon Road, Injune. Do we have a mover? Councillor Edwards.
I'd like to move that council one, we're the same as here. There's a difference. Oh, there's a difference there. I'd like to move that council one note that the requested investment by council is not currently approved as part of the 2021-22 budget. Provided at the first quarterly review in October 2021. 4, commence a review of the capital upgrade request policy with the view of assisting officers assess similar requests on an equitable and timely basis in the future. 5, provide a private works quotation for the supply of material should the resident wish to undertake the private works on the driveway in the interim. And 6, advise the resident of the process for applying to form part of the panel of pre-qualified suppliers.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. C10, requests for support. Do we have a mover? Councillor Burkett.
Oh, sorry, no, I was just pointing up. We changed it.
I'll move it. That the Mayor write to Santos and Origin and the other companies mentioned, introducing Greg Moore from Yulbar Minerals as a local business that can supply.
Can I just make a suggestion, Mr Mayor?
Yep.
A local sand supply business in the Maranoa.
Yeah, local sand supply business. In the Maranoa that could fulfil opportunities in the gas exploration industry. The Mayor, right?
Sector. It's the gas sector.
Sector, I'm happy to change from industry to sector. It's local sand supply business in Maranoa that could fulfil opportunities in the gas exploration sector. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 5-4 if I can call for a division. Okay, moving on. C11, loadout system.
I have a conflict.
Councillor O'Neill and Hancock have left the room. A C11 loadout system, Roma Saleyards. I'd like to move that a report be prepared for an upcoming council meeting I'd like to move that council receive and note the email dated the 6th of September 2021. And 2, a report be prepared for an upcoming council meeting following consultation with relevant stakeholders for their input into the extra dump ramp for triple road trains.
Mr Mayor, can I suggest we leave triple out because we want it for all road trains.
Okay, so for
Not
road
limit
trains,
to-
we provide upcoming meeting following consultation with relevant stakeholders for input into an extra, I'll just say get rid of dump and just say ramp. So we just maximum flexibility for road trains. On the...
In conjunction with a review of the master plan?
yeah, yeah.
In conjunction with a review of the master plan?
Yep. And I just want to highlight where it is. It would be on the southern side of the Saleyards.
We have, I don't know whether you have.
Mr Mayor, I believe all the new councillors haven't seen a master plan, so a few times people have said the master plan, we haven't got a clue what anyone's talking about.
So it'll be coming back to you when you get it?
We'll see a master
Yep,
plan.
correct.
Um,
If it's supported, it will be, yeah.
Cal, I think the mayor said for input into an extra ramp. Yeah.
On the southern side for road trains, in conjunction with the review of the master plan. Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Edwards, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? Certainly do. I do believe this is sorely needed. The more that we can get cattle on busy sale days in and out of Roma Saleyards faster will help the brand of Roma Saleyards. We've got a great facility. I think we need to make it faster so people are talking about Roma Saleyards for all the right reasons. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 0. Yes,
Yeah.
please. Yep, we're right to go.
Be out of here by 6:30. 6:30, we'll be out of here.
C1, Employee Code of Conduct. Do we have a mover? Councillor O'Neill.
I move that council receive the draft employee code of conduct, introduction and principle 1, as presented for release to the broader workforce for consultation and refinement.
We have a seconder, Councillor Taylor. Do we have any opposition?
Councillor O'Neill, would you mind if the feedback from councillors be provided in the next couple of days because that will help shape the work on 2, 3 and 4.
And with feedback provided by councillors, this is terrible, by close of business, Friday the 24th, is it? 24th, is it? I don't know.
Yep.
24th of September.
Yeah, to help shape the work on principles 2, 3 and 4.
Happy with that?
Is the seconder happy with that?
Absolutely.
Righto. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 8-1, if I call for a division. Okay, moving on to page 9. LC2, Mitchell Memorial Park upgrade. Do we have a mover? Councillor Burkett.
There's nothing changed, it's all on there. I'd like to move that Council 1 approve option D as the scope of works to be delivered for Mitchell 2021-22 Mitchell Memorial Park upgrade project with the key features including A, the construction of a new multi-age playground, including relocation of the existing playground to the Mitchell Weir playground site. B, a new shade structure over one of the landing decks at the skate park. 2 new covered barbecue areas with one of the areas to include a large group picnic table. D, stencil train, interpretive material and train cabin. E, additional seating around the garden edge facing the band rotunda. And F, additional footpath extensions including a new footpath scooter loop around the western side of the park. 2, hold a precinct information session at the Mitchell Memorial Park. Project. Sorry, I can't blame you bifocals. Hold a project information session at the Mitchell Memorial Park on 7th of October to display the community the key features of the upgrade, with these features to be pegged on site prior to the information session. 3, write to the Bringa Action Group and provide them with an update of the project, including a summary of the key elements to be delivered. 4, resolve to prepare a tender consideration plan for the construction of the new playground to be delivered as part of the upgrade project. And 5, include the additional amenities block at the park noted in the master plan as part of capital upgrade register for future budget consideration by council as part of the quarterly review and annual budget deliberation. Oh, it wasn't on my, sorry, October 2021.
No, we have a seconder, Councillor Hancock. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just think this is a great day for the kids of the Mitchell community or in the surrounding areas. It's a long overdue for an upgrade, and I think the playground and everything is going to be enormous for the town. I'd like to commend Deputy Director Cam and his team for bringing this to fruition, and I look forward to seeing the expression on the kids' faces when it's done.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? I'd just like to say that whatever we can do to improve the lives of the residents of the Maranoa and the children, and we all know that children, when they go past a great park, want to hook in there. So I hope this park for Mitchell lives up to the expectations of the children of Mitchell. Does anyone else wish to speak? Then we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Any further business, councillors? Okay, we'll close the meeting at 6:16 p.m. and thank you for your attendance.